Hackers, when did you stumble into something that made you GTFO? A couple of years back, I was really big into reactivating old Hotmail accounts and using them to log into Facebook. Since this was in the heyday of chainmails with 100 or so accounts there, I had a huge backlog to get through. I don't know why I did it. It was a combination of boredom and voyeurism, I think, and lots of free time. I felt like a sort of hacker at least. Occasionally, you stumble upon things you wish you weren't supposed to. I mean, yeah, I know how that sounds. Once, I came upon a guy's Facebook, and after a while I realized it hasn't been used in years. A bit like coming across an abandoned house. Tons of notifications and unopened PMs. On top of the list of those messages, it was a woman that kept trying to contact him. My first impression was that it was a stalker, maybe an ex that wasn't able to move on. I don't really want to go into details because even for me it felt like I'd walked into an absolutely private matter. But it was mostly her talking about her day-to-day stuff and occasionally begging him to come back. Sometimes it got real weird, with her telling him how she felt him in the wind. Turns out the guy was dead, and people have strange ways of coping. I left that habit behind after that. Just imagine being that woman and coming back to find your messages read. That would really mess me up good for a couple of days. Yeah, that's what I thought. I might be a creep and a voyeur, but I made sure I set those messages back to unread before leaving. I was asked to steal a couple of Bitcoin from a customer's associate back when Bitcoin and altcoins were booming. I got access to his wallet fairly easily, being curious as I am, and I also checked out how he got so much coin. He had tons of small sum payments with links attached to the transactions. I checked one, and it was just illegal videos containing unwilling participants. I'm not talking a few grand in Bitcoin in this guy's wallet, but closer to 6 to 7 figures. Just hundreds and hundreds of small $50 to $1,000 transactions. It was sickening. Lots and lots of the worst sort of illegal adult films. I told the guy I was working for that his associate was a frickin' predator and quickly dropped a line to the relevant authorities. Stuff like that screws you up, man. In short, I was asked to gain access to a Bitcoin wallet, checked the transactions, and they were selling real messed up and illegal stuff. Got hired through a website where someone wanted me to gain access to a kid's computer who doxed him. Got into it and found out that he was looking up recipes for explosives. I turned him in and noped out of there. And I've had a few others where I found the same sort of awful material we talked about in the last story. It's way too common. Yeah, the narrator has just realized that there's going to have to be some careful placement and selection here, because, surprise, the people being hacked often have the same stuff that they want kept secret for the sake of self-preservation on their PCs. I should have guessed that one. Many long years ago, there was this website called Aon8. It was basically just a weird ambiguous splash page with a countdown timer and a map with red dots all over it. This thing was super effective at rustling the jimmies of the entire internet. I found a way in relatively early, and based on a few things I found in the web root, it immediately became obvious that the whole thing was a prank. So I decided to leave it alone and just watch it play out. Right at the very end of the countdown, the guy that was running the whole thing updated the website with his big reveal, including some message about how the hackers from all over the world kept trying to break in, but none could manage it, and called us all lame noobs. I was a bratty teenager, so I took that as a challenge. I was on a teleconference with some other hackers at the time, so we jumped on that server through a back door I'd left and defaced the page with the message, "The internets will never be safe," and a few more choice but cringe words. Anyway, right around this time, as the countdown ended and for a while after, the server was getting swamped to the point of an essential DDoS. This was happening while I was logged into SSH on the server. I was in the process of doing some cleanup, deleting some utility scripts I'd put out on the server, but I was impatient. The lag was grueling and I was working faster than the server was sending me responses. I changed directories at one point and tried to delete everything in it before seeing a response from the server and didn't realize that I'd fat-fingered the CD command. I ended up deleting a bunch of this guy's stuff that I didn't even mean to. The second I realized what I'd done, I instantly felt horrible and noped the F out of there. We'd planned on razzing the guy for a while, but I was just totally done. I was hired to develop a payment processor for an unnamed large fast food brand. At this point, I had the ability to take out $100,000 a day into an offshore account. I would have done this by pulling a movie plot like a heist. I was going to take 2% of all tax payments. I was thinking about it for a while, and then the next day, someone I knew was busted for doing the same thing on a much smaller brand. At this point, I dipped out. I ended up working for the brand for a few more years without committing fraud. Not really serious hacking, but back in the day I wrote a Trojan that would steal user account info and CD keys from Diablo 2, which I would sell later on eBay for sweet, sweet cash. I would proxy between the connection of the client and server, and while the user was in the chat room on the Realm, it would spam download links for the Trojan and subsequently hide the messages from anyone infected so they wouldn't suspect anything. This made it self-spreading, and it was actually so effective that eventually Blizzard put up a warning about it on their website. I took down the sites hosting it at that point since I was scared and didn't want it to get traced back to me. My old boss asked me to find the personal data of somebody that he'd met at a hotel for reasons. I explained that I was unlikely to be able to do it untraceably, explained social engineering, explained that I was no good at social engineering, and noped the F out. Let him try. KPP on iOS. I'm not even going to try to find a way around that thing. I worked for a company that was selling people's data in the early 2010s. They had about 6 million leads. I dropped the database before I left. I hope that company collapsed the next morning. Not really a hack. The school IT department were idiots and left the password to the main account hard-coded in a batch script. I went in and found out all the teachers' pay, the students' names, addresses, social security numbers, just to name a few. Nope, 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 out, out, out. I like finding insecure IP cameras, mostly the ones with no password or the default password, and then log into them wherever they are. A lot are in houses, some are in kids' rooms or whatever. I honestly never tend to keep any open long enough to see people. One was just in a random house, in the front room, and there was someone on the sofa. After a few minutes, they got up and were completely starkers. I realized this was somewhat problematic and never went back to that one. I was at a Counter-Strike LAN party ages ago. I ran a bunch of NetSend scripts on the network, causing prompts to pop up in the front of the game saying dumb stuff like, "Good luck, right behind you," or "Your mother gives great down-under kisses." Eventually, the party organizer paused the games to walk everyone through how to disable messaging services. The funny thing was that about 15% of the people already had that off, including my group, and it caused a few unfair wins. I noped out when people started looking at me since I wasn't exactly quiet about the whole thing. It was frickin' amazing, and the start of a long, long road of engineering and infosec work. This was back in the day of AIM and chat rooms. I had a guy I was watching in a chat room. I sent him a message acting as someone significantly younger than me. Told him to download my naughty pictures. He did, and it was just a quick download that gave me access to the entire system. The tool I used displayed the entire system and all functions in a hierarchy of importance with the Windows kernel at the tippy top. As soon as I was all set, I deleted his kernel. I lost all of my tools from back then, but that was a sweet time to be around. Seek and destroy internet predators. Script Kiddie College me decided to play with a pen testing program against a government website from the school network. The amount of network info and other metadata, as well as actual documents it was pulling, was scary. Plus, it was overheating my rig because of the processing power involved, and just overall I realized this was a crappy idea, so I killed it. I crashed a print daemon on a SprintNet, times 0.25, connected system, thereby freezing and crashing the whole mainframe. Never reconnected again because I was afraid there'd be monitoring. This was like in 1991, you whippersnappers. This message means absolutely zippy-doo to the narrator, but I hope that at least one old-school hacker from 30 years back saw this and got a quick chuckle from the memories. We try to cater to all tastes here on the channel. Back in middle school, I used a VNC to hack all of the school computers. I had a free lesson, so I went to the computer lab, or whatever they called it back then. I connected to the internet, ran Angry IP Scanner, which was a great tool by the way, and picked a random computer. Now, for those non-hackers, a VNC basically allows you to connect to a different person's PC and control and monitor it. As soon as I connected to this guy's computer, I just saw adult material all over the screen, like quite specific interest stuff, not your run-of-the-mill mom-and-pop smut. The reason why this was so weird was that everyone there was like 11, 12, 13, 14, and all of that stuff was never talked about in the school. Reading this, I think the best thing about hackers is that they can be moral. Keep up the good fight, guys. When I was young, I got into hacking AOL for cool screen names. I met people who social engineered AOL. They'd call up AOL and pretend their system, Merlin, was down, and trick real employees into resetting stuff. It was on the converse call when they stole the owner of AOL's account, as well as those of other high-ranking figures at the company. Couple of years later, me and my fellow hackers were all friends, playing Halo and stuff together. They told me to connect to this live server, that you could control the mouse, and they hacked the Comcast website and wanted me to connect to it. I had this weird gut feeling to ask what it was for once, and they told me. I said, hell to the no. Also, these same people had a botnet channel. I was in it back in the day, and a government cybercrimes agent came in and told us to shut it down. I was like 14, so I was terrified that I was going to juvie. But now I work in systems admin and have a good job, so I'm kind of thankful that I wandered into that AOL chat back in the day. It made me the person that I am now. Pretty deep into the dark web for work, looking for certain things, came across certain adverts on darknet search websites that made me leave work until the next day. Noped the frick out of there. I would prefer not to say what it was, but you can guess. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. The killer of the CMD library of Ethereum multisig wallets. Approximately couple of 100 million gone forever. So what you're saying is that you avenged all the guys unable to buy GPUs because of these miners? I would kiss you if I could. I was a spammer in the mid to late 90s. There were a group of 3 of us who would make a website using affiliate content and then spam the link to it. Started off by spamming AOL chat rooms, and we made a decent living from it. 2 to 3 grand for each of us per week. Then we got bigger into it and left the confines of AOL, which led to bigger paydays of 20 to 30 grand per month until the authorities knocked on one of my partner's doors. They never did come to me, and I was 17 at the time, and I stopped that once that happened. Well, this isn't a life or death situation like some of the other posts here. I sniffed the credentials for our student information and grading system in high school with a program called Cain and Abel. Did nothing with it, but I could see grades, addresses, social security numbers, the works. This is more amateur teenage social engineering than pure hacking. A friend and I created an account on a French chat website. It was called Coco Chat or something like that. It was aimed at children, I think. We made our account look like we were a 9-year-old girl and just started chatting with people. Needless to say, it was pretty disturbing seeing the kind of things people wanted to talk to us about. One of them was talking almost every day with us. We even thought about sending him a keylogger or a Trojan to find out more information about him and call the cops on him. In the end, we were too disgusted and frightened by this guy to continue doing that. I was pretty good with computers as a teenager and got into hacking, so of course I decided to have a little fun on the social network. The Wi-Fi password was literally schoolmascot staff09, which was easy to crack and felt like a trap or joke. After some tinkering around trying to get into unsecured devices, I ended up gaining access to a classmate's laptop. I didn't recognize any files right away as personally identifiable until I got to a folder that said APush Drafts, which contained another folder that said APush Bibliography, which contained yet another that read APush Chapter Guides, and inside held one last folder that said APush Lecture Recordings. Thinking I'd get a leg up on some future classes, I opened one of the files. It was one of the seniors at my school dressed as George Washington, wig and all, undressing and tickling his pickle. My intent was to maybe steal some notes and make my history class a breeze, but instead I saw a guy yanking his doodle American Revolution style. I was a freshman, he was a senior, so we didn't cross paths, but his historical reenactment events sometimes pop up on my Facebook, and I am filled with horror. I wouldn't call myself a hacker, just a Google dork. I don't believe how easy it is. Just a Google search away, you can look through someone's camera. I was an early internet adopter back in the days of Slip and Trumpet Windsock. Was in a racy Usenet news group and came across about 12 images of straight-up illegal material of the sort described elsewhere here. I knew the admin for the ISP we used personally. I called him at his desk and let him know what was up. They cleaned the spool and notified the FBI, but that shook me. That was 1994, by the way. My uncle lives with his parents and everything was unsecured. Open network so any files on devices could be accessed. On his computer, the uncle cranks it to Betty, Archie, and Veronica material. I'm convinced the dark web is about 2/3 adult films themed around revenge and some more containing unwilling participants and some German lunatic talking about conspiracies. The last third is buying green herb through the mail. I had to use all of my elite hacking skills at once, one time. I even got a blurry security pic but was able to zoom in and 4K that crap by saying, "Computer, enhance image." I had to type a lot very fast to get past all those firewalls. but at the end of the day, I was able to gain access to NASA and confirm that the Earth is indeed round, people. After submitting multiple bug reports to various financial organizations and cloud service providers about things like being able to bypass authentication requirements or spoof official documents, and always seeing the issue closed as working as intended, I've kind of given up on trusting anything to be secure. I managed to break my ex's father's password. While snooping through files to see what I could find, I stumbled upon folders and folders of this one guy, his wife, and various friends of theirs wearing nothing but literal number 2, going number 1 on each other. They were in their 70s, and it left me scarred. Oh boy, yeah, I don't care how much you liked that ex-partner of yours. That's not an association you can really ever just shrug off, is it? You'd need hypnotherapy or something to unsee that. I discovered that my friend's homework folder contained nothing but actual homework. It was a sad, disappointing day indeed. Working in IT for a large medical group, I found inappropriate films featuring animals on the owner's laptop, on his home computer, and office desktop. The guy was 72. Back when Kazaa was big, I downloaded a bunch of adult movies. Teen me figured since I built my own computer and bought all the parts myself, that it'd be safe from my mum and her newly married husband. Wrong. He didn't hack it exactly because I had no safeguards and had nothing to hide. But when I got home, he asked me why I was watching all this animal smut. I was so confused and said I hadn't because that's gross. Came to find out, one of the videos I downloaded was labeled as regular old vanilla adult film, but it was, not. So that's pretty much when I stopped trusting peer-to-peer smut downloads. Let me give you an actual answer. Actual things I found disturbing. Professionally, I'm not a hacker, just an IT monkey. First, I'm honestly surprised that our banking system works, period. I've worked in multiple banks, and frankly, I'm surprised their systems work at all. Some servers are 20 years old, some don't have a working DR solution, some are using software that's no longer on the market, so if those servers break, and they're 20 years old, there's no working alternative in place. I've seen such servers break twice. Once we had to buy an identical server from eBay and ship it to London overnight to repair a broken machine. Another time I just happened to be at the end of a long line of failures, and I'm pretty sure I was responsible for at least 10 million in trading losses. To this day, I don't know how I wasn't sacked for that one. This was an old Solaris 8 server, and frankly, probably half the components weren't working properly, but I was still responsible for that screw-up. Fun fact, we found some servers everyone forgot about. Some old OpenBSD 3 server, that's an OS from the frickin' 90s, after selling our business unit. The new owners just asked what the frick is that thing. We had old Red Hat 2 servers still running around when I left that bank a few years ago. We had IBM Power 4 servers around as well. Needless to say, nobody has released any security updates on those servers in over a decade. Second thing, security? What's that? This is mobile banking. We need no security. I've seen, quote, engineers commit confidential code for mobile banking apps with secret keys to public Git repos. Also, at one point, I was aware of critical security vulnerabilities in 2 mobile banking apps. This was about 2 years ago. Types of vulnerabilities that potentially would allow hackers to get all info, including card data. Which brings me to the third point. Pervasive culture of hiding everything. We had a security breach? Well, do the regulators know this? No? Then let's keep it that way. Nobody needs to know that we've been hacked and millions of people are about to see their money stolen. They hunt down whistleblowers who report this kind of thing. One bank I work at got fined for money laundering, established office in some Eastern European country and hired a bunch of young, fresh, recent graduates desperate for jobs and gave them documents to analyze, in language none of them spoke. They literally went out of their way to find students who couldn't understand the documents they were analyzing, and this was my first job. You know what happened when I actually found money laundering? The company would be gone from the system. Private companies, especially small ones, are the worst, probably because they can't afford armies of engineers to try and fix their problems. It's remarkably easy to hack some web store, get credit card data, and start selling it on the dark web. You can literally buy someone else's credit card for a few bucks. Banks at least have some security in place. My school's ID system was alphabetical and passwords followed numerical. So Adam Ames was Adam Ames 0001 password. We had access to everyone, and everyone had all their stuff on cloud servers, so we could edit anyone at any time. While I didn't do anything, I had friends delete everyone they hated's homework folders and stuff. Eventually, 30 kids were passed because the school didn't want to admit its security system was that easy to beat. But another 20 kids were due to fail, the school changed grades themselves so the graduation rate was higher, and we were able to see it happen live, so we had two major issues. Back when DSL was king and you could snoop your internal ISP network for file shares, I did just that. This was in the IRC days, so I always went looking down the same folder path to find whatever was open. This isn't really hacking in the sense of figuring out how something works and then working around it or defeating a security flaw. You could literally just input an IP range, and it would go around to every IP asking, "Hey, are you sharing?" I'd found some good adult movies, some real weird music, and rarely I'd find like a TV show or a movie. Fast DSL was still maybe 10M at the time, so compared to now it was really slow. After finding one of these accounts, I started opening the JPEGs inside. Things were looking good until I ran across obvious illegal adult films of the sort described earlier. I was sick, like I had to go throw up. I thought about what I can do about this. I could report it to my ISP security department, but then I'd be knocking on myself. So that's obviously out. Could just delete it, but then they'd just download it again. So I took one of the images, renamed it to logo.sys, and placed it in the main root of the offender's C drive. To explain further for those that don't know, Windows 95 all the way up to Windows XP kept the loading Windows splash screen in a file called logo.sys. This made it easy for partners like HP, Dell, Compaq, and the others to make custom loading screens like Powered by HP along with the Windows logo. So it meant that now, the next time that computer rebooted, instead of a Windows loading screen, it would display the offending image that I'd renamed. I hacked into my own phone and went to Google symptoms of short-term memory loss, and all the links were already purple.
Tattoo artists of Reddit. What is your most, are you sure, tattoo you've been asked to do/have done? I actually refused to do this one. An 18-year-old girl came in wanting her boyfriend's name on her lower back. She had never met him. She was his prison pen pal for a month, and he was being released in a couple weeks, and she wanted to get it to surprise him. No judgments on ex-cons or 18-year-old girls, but I got the impression the relationship wasn't going to last. That's not the good kind of surprise. Imagine if you're chatting with a girl on OkCupid, and it's going okay, so you meet up for your first date, and she says she has a surprise for you. So you're thinking, awesome. Did she buy me a gift? Or maybe she wants to show me a cool place when we're walking through the city. Or maybe she just wants to give me a surprise hug, because everyone likes surprise hugs from cute girls. Nope. Turns out she's tattooed your name on her body. I'm the type of person who thinks quote-unquote red flags are typically overreactions because everyone deserves a fair chance. But this right here, this is a real freaking red flag. That's on fire. And someone is waving it frantically while holding a megaphone in their other hand, into which they are screaming, "Run! Run if you want to live! Get the heck out now!" An artist at the local tattoo parlor I go to tattooed a guy's ball sack, all orange with a scary face on it. The guy referred to it as a sack-o'-lantern. Now fellas, we need to talk. You're not going to be able to use this for 11 months out of the year. And for the 1 month you get to use this on, it's for 1 day only. I just got done watching a YouTube video on the worst Christmas gifts of 2022, and some of those gifts were Christmas-themed Christmas gifts. I just want you to think about that before you decide to get something holiday-related permanently tattooed on your body. A guy came in and got his wife's name covered up with the portrait of his new girlfriend. My coworker used part of her shirt in the picture to cover up the name. Then, 2 months later, he turned his now ex-girlfriend's portrait into a demon. I started working at another shop, and in came the same guy with a third girl, and they were getting matching tattoos on their hands. When I walked to the front and saw him, he totally pretended he didn't know me. Dude came in and asked me to tattoo a portrait of his girlfriend. Only, the portrait was a duck-face Snapchat selfie. I jokingly suggested adding her holding the phone, taking the selfie, but he thought it was a great idea. They've only been dating 6 months, and he didn't tell her he was going to get it. He came back a month later to add her name above it. My ex-tattooist, I didn't know that was a thing until now, tried to convince me to get a broken condom with the word "whoops" above it. Obviously, I declined. He ended up tattooing it on his own upper arm with his son's birthday below. Mate had to tattoo a picture of Bill Cosby to a dude's back in the mid-2000s. Poor guy probably regrets that now. Zip zap zoobity bop! Was in booking a tattoo one day, and a woman came in to buy her soon-to-be 16-year-old daughter a tattoo. Owner and tattooist says, "Sure, we can sort something out. What is she wanting?" Mother says she wants to get the Playboy bunny on the inside of her wrist. Artist refused and said, "I don't want to be responsible for something so cliché and visible on such a young girl." There was an argument, but the woman leaves yelling she is going elsewhere where her money is good enough. He had strong views on neck, face, and hand tattoos. Didn't stop him from doing a fast food character orgy on a guy's back, though. I know a lot of tattoo artists who will flat out refuse neck, hand, and face tattoos on a young person if they aren't tatted up already, because that foolish/impulsive tattoo can create some major waves down the line from getting a job to be flat out profiled. And, like a bartender, they ultimately reserve the right to decide whether to do the tattoo or not, just like a bartender doesn't have to serve someone if they aren't comfortable with it. Definitely had many of these. One really great dingling-related one recently. I work at Vic Market Tattoo in Melbourne. If you know the area, you know it's one of the older Melbourne tattoo shops. With that history comes a lot of older customers who ramble on about their experience of getting tattooed here over 20 years ago, which is why they inevitably come back. This older gent, easily in his 80s, comes to the front desk and points me out from way down the back of the shop. "I want to talk to that guy." Confused, I meander up to the front to be met with a blush of embarrassment. He stumbles into his request. "Now, I'm not here to offend you or to make light of the wonderful work you do, but I do have a strange ask for you," he states. Here's where it gets weird, and I really feel like he could have led with a sentence better than, "So I was watching this young chap take a whiz the other day, and he had just the most beautiful bee tattooed on the head of his dingling, and I wanted to request to have the exact same bee tattooed on my dingling." Slightly taken aback and slightly amused, I tell him we can definitely do that, but that there are extra costs involved. Once I told him the price, he almost fell over, didn't respond, and mumbled his way out of the shop. Never will I forget. "I was just watching this young chap take a whiz." I tattooed a swear word on a woman's hip. Just the swear word. She still loves it, but it makes me really uncomfortable when I think about her at the beach. I also had a friend want me to tattoo his girlfriend's name in Old English on his arm. I said, "No girlfriends." He was mad because I was his friend and should do it. I said that's exactly why I wouldn't do it. If they don't last, I'm still his friend. It's incredibly hard to tell someone you won't do their tattoo because their relationship might not last. Newsflash, he got our competitor to do the tattoo. Breaking news, they aren't together anymore. Another guy, when I first started out, wanted to get the fascist hunter image. It's a cartoon guy clubbing a swastika. Even though it's an anti-racism image, he still would have looked like he had a giant swastika on his chest from 10 feet away and would spend the rest of his life explaining it. I decided to not do the tattoo. Guy came into the shop I work at wanting a cover-up of a previous regrettable tattoo. Pretty normal until he casually mentioned it's on his dingling, and it's a red rocket. None of the dudes on the shop wanted to cover it up or even see it. Only person who stepped up was one of the female artists. She was like, "I don't think I have a dingling tattoo for my portfolio, so screw it, let's cover it up." The only possible way to cover it up was to add so much black work, so she freehand drew a tuxedo onto his schlong. Dude ended up with a dapper dingling, and he was happy with it. Weirdest day at work ever. I know this guy who wanted a quote-unquote cutie mark on a guy's butt. A cutie mark is the marking the ponies have on their rear in the My Little Pony series. For everyone wondering what his cutie mark is, I don't remember. It was his own special mark. Last year, while doing a guest spot in Portugal, I had a guy come in while he was on holiday for his stag party. The guy wanted all the names of his friends tattooed on his butt cheeks. 13 names on each cheek, and 3 of his mates wanted to sign their own names. Sure, buddy. Sure. I was a shop girl, so it was my job to get everything set up for the tattoos. I had a couple come in and want each other's names tattooed on them. Okay, no problem. At this shop, we had a rule that anything involving words has to have the person sign a copy of the lettering to make sure everything is spelled correctly. So they write their names down, the artist draws the lettering, and I give them the copies to double-check spelling and sign off on it. The woman looks at the man's name. He wrote down his name to give to the artist and says it's spelled wrong. We double-check, and that's how he spelled it, and he looks at it and says, "It's right," and they argue about this. I go back and look at how it is spelled on his ID, and sure enough, it's spelled wrong. So he decides maybe it is spelled wrong, and the artist redraws it. On all his paperwork, he had spelled his name wrong, the way he had written it for the artist. His name is pretty common. I think he just really didn't know how to spell his name. This was a couple in probably their late 20s, early 30s with a few kids together. The guy's name? Jeffrey. We had this lovely exchange student come into the studio for about a year to get all sorts of piercings, and then the day finally came that he turned 18. So he asked to sit down and had a chat with him about what he wanted. Now, the way he asked me made me think that it was going to be this big, elaborate design. He asked for a maths equation on his foot. He wanted 3 + 4 = 8. I cautiously asked that he knew that that was the incorrect answer to the equation. His response was, "Oh yeah, I know. I just think it'd make a funny tattoo." So yeah, that and another time I tattooed Scooby-Doo and Shaggy on a guy's bum cheeks. A man came into the shop my husband works at on his 18th birthday and got a pentagram with a goat on the front of his throat. First tattoo in a very visible spot that is satanic. I don't know that kid, but I'm pretty sure he's regretting that decision. My husband refused to do this tattoo, but someone else in the shop did. On another note, my white trash biological father had "Let's Screw" tattooed on his hands when he laced his fingers together. I never knew what they said when I was a kid. I finally realized it at his funeral. I'm pretty sure he got it in prison. I've tattooed a guy's current wife's name on him. In the same session, covered up his previous wife's name, and he also showed me another, different previous wife's name he had on him. He didn't want to cover that one though. She must have not been that bad. Okay, that's a lot right off the bat. We also had this couple come in all the time to get tattooed at the first shop I worked at. The guy would come in sometimes with a side girl and buy her tattoos, sometimes with his fiancée. After they were married, his fiancée wanted me to tattoo their wedding date on her wrist. I felt really weird trying to talk her out of it while not feeling like it was my place to tell her about this guy's behavior. I ended up doing it for her, and a year later, she came in to get a red line tattooed through the date. TLDR, don't get names or dates unless they're your kids or dead. One of my dad's friends got a Gary Glitter tattoo back when he was popular, regretting that big portrait of a kitty diddler on his arm now that he is 60. Friend wanted angel wings tattooed on her back and asked me to go since I was the only person she knew with tattoos. We walk into a pretty well-known tattoo shop in LA, and she explains to the artist what she wants. As she explains, it gets even more elaborate with the wings starting to decay the further down her back they went, and the artist shows us some pretty sweet wings he'd done before. He explains how it will be done. He'd do the outline first, and after a few weeks, she could come back and he'd start the detail work. Fast forward to 3 days later, and she's topless lying on his chair/bed, and he's laying a stencil down. He asks her what other tattoos she has besides this one, and she tells him that this will be her first one. Tattoo guy's face drops instantly, and he starts saying how he's going to end up tattooing some of the most painful parts you could tattoo, the ribs mostly. And he asked if she can handle it. She says yes, and after a little more talking, it happened. She cannot take the pain at all. She's crying and gripping the cushion like she's about to die. Artist looks at me and his face reads like, is she really going to do this the entire time? After half an hour of tattooing with the occasional break, he says he can't deal with her screaming in the shop, so he stops. He had probably 10% of the outline done on the right wing. We leave with another appointment set so another person could re-help her with the tattoo and make it something smaller. I didn't go back, but she went with 2 female friends, and from what I heard was another 10 minutes of tattooing, and she had a nice wave outline on her back. I know a girl who tattooed a Wu-Tang W on her upper thigh. Only after she finished and looked in the mirror did she realize that she had done it so that she could see the W, but to everyone else it looks like an M. R/no regrets. During the Twilight craze, a mother brought in her 14-year-old to get vampire bites tattooed on her neck, little holes with blood streaming down. We refused and they got angry. A few years later, I saw that girl in public. She must have gone to a crappy shop. She had 2 quarter-sized black dots with red strings all the way down her stupid neck. Well, my friend recently got tang, the Chinese word for soup, tattooed on his ankle. He'd been planning it for like 3 years. He reportedly did his research to make sure they didn't tattoo, quote, truth or beauty or some other bullcrap. Honestly, if I had the guts, I would get fried rice tattooed on my arm because I love fried rice. There was an 85-year-old woman who came into my tattoo artist shop saying exactly, "How would a freaking skull with freaking daggers and fire?" My artist said, "Heck yeah!" And now she's an 85-year-old grandma with skull and daggers on her chest. I've had 3 tattooists ask me, "Are you sure?" All because of the same tattoo. Long story short, I lost a bet and ended up with a dingling on a surfboard tattooed to my butt. Well, it turns out this is a great conversation starter and always gets a giggle from everyone who sees it. But the tattoo itself isn't great, so I'd like to tidy it up and make it look better and less scratchy. Every single tattooist I've asked has looked at me like I'm crazy. One went as far as to tell me a young woman should not have surfing genitalia on her butt. I tattoo eyebrows specifically. I've had a few clients come in and not know it's a tattoo. I had an older woman come in with her paid deposit and think that I was going to wax her eyebrows. She thought the deposit was the price of waxing eyebrows, $110. I felt terrible. I waxed her eyebrows, showed her how to fill them in with a pencil, and then refunded her deposit. Other than that, there's the usual freak out before starting, so I'll always ask, "Are you sure?" I know a girl with a camel tattooed on one of her toes. It's only an outline, and it's hidden most of the time, but I do wonder what motivated her to have a tattoo with the theme of camel toe. Not a tattoo artist, but the last time I got a tattoo, I overheard the guy in the stall next to mine getting a tattoo of 3 spanners along his forearm. His tattoo artist was asking, why spanners? Like, was he a mechanic or an engineer? Nope, dude was a chef. Maybe he wanted to be a mechanic? Or it was a hobby or something? Nope, dude had always wanted to be a chef and loved his work. Then why the spanners? Turns out, the dude just really likes spanners. Spanner equals wrench, often known as spanner outside of North America. Today I also learned what a wrench was. This has been a very informative topic. She thought that cazzo cancro meant screw cancer in Italian, while it really means dingling cancer. Not a tattoo artist, but my dad has a terrible tattoo on his arm of his and my mum's name. Years ago, she told him to get something around it to make it look a little nicer, and he came back with a dolphin on his pec. She wanted screw it on the inside of her lower lip? I need to know, is that a viable place to put a tattoo? Like, pain notwithstanding, you'd think that having a tattoo on the inside of your lip would be impossible? Like, you're not from Wakanda, that's not gonna work. But I don't know, tattoo artists of YouTube, let me know in the comments if this is a really, really, really stupid idea. My artist had a drunk guy come in that wanted a raw T-bone steak on one pec. Artist told him no, but guy insisted, so artist finally let him make an appointment to come back in a few days when he was sober and talk about it. Dude actually came back and was still insistent that he wanted the steak. Artist told him, okay, he put together some sample art and dude would come back the next day, still thinking this guy would change his mind and not show. But dude comes back the next, and he loves the art that artist shows him. Artist figures, why not? And he does it. I saw the photo of the finished tat in his portfolio. It's exactly as described, just a big photorealistic raw T-bone steak, like what you'd buy in a grocery store. This is a Ron Burgundy moment if I've ever heard one. Not an artist, but when I was in high school, a kid got a 7-Eleven Slurpee tattooed on his inner forearm. He showed it to the guy who owned the 7-Eleven nearby, who was so impressed he gave him free Slurpees for life. Hey, let's go! My 2 best friends got Born to be Wild in black with red flames right above their Johnsons. Now, since they are hardly ever professional snatch punishers, their pubes just mask it. But in college, they would trim and use it as a party trick. It worked. Lots of girls wanted to see it. Maybe like 3 or 4 BJs came from it with the aid of some distilled potato water. But I told the story goes of them getting it done. The 2 dudes, with cleanly shaven pubes, getting Born to be Wild above their Johnsons. And their artist says, I recommend Bad to the Bone. It's funnier. I worked in a tattoo shop for a few months, learning to be a body piercer. The owner was this gruff older guy. Anyway, this girl walks in and wants a tattoo of a daisy on the top of her foot. It was her first tattoo. The owner tried for a good 10 minutes to talk her out of it, explaining how painful it was to get a tattoo there. She basically told him, shut up and do the tattoo, old man. So he did. She got about a half-inch line done before she screamed and kicked him. She started bawling her eyes out about how bad it hurt. She left with nothing but that half-inch line as a trophy to her own stupidity. Not a tattoo artist. I have a friend who got a tattoo of a nightclub name on his butt. It began with the hashtag, and he gets free entry for life. He's the only guy I know who shows his butt to the bouncers, and instead of getting kicked out, he gets let in free. Oh man, My dad and my stepmom got tattoos the day before they got impulsively married in Vegas. My stepmom, she got his last name tattooed on her inner forearm about 3 inches long. My dad got an enormous, full-body portrait of my stepmother in lingerie. It covers his shoulder and almost all of his upper arm. I was about 13 at that point, and I was livid after they came back and showed us their new ink and their rings. At least they're still married now. Distraught dude came in wanting a portrait. I asked to see the reference photo that he wanted to get tattooed. He showed me a bunch of low-resolution webcam shots of this lady from a dating site. I assumed he was trying to impress some online chick he met, so without telling him that was a horrendous idea, I instead said that it wouldn't work due to the low quality of the pictures and the heavy filters she used. Later learned that the pictures were of his ex-wife from her new dating profile. He was having a really hard time getting over her, so I convinced him that this probably wasn't the best way to get over someone. He ended up booking an appointment to get his son's portraits instead, and then didn't show up for the appointment. So, happy ending? I knew a soldier in my unit who wanted Florida tattooed on his chest, where he was born. Tattoo artist put on the stencil, asked him to check it out. He looked in the mirror and declared it was backwards. The artist began to explain how mirrors work, and he quickly responded with, "Look, I can see it's backwards. Just flip it, idiot." So the artist obliged. When he proudly showed off his new tattoo, the amount of laughter that ensued embarrassed him into wearing t-shirts every second of every day for months. However, he redeemed himself by getting the word cavalry tattooed on his back because, I'm sure you guessed, he was in the cavalry at the time. However, he once again screwed it up by getting the word cavalry tattooed on his back, which is a very subtle but very important difference. Both tattoos were big, bold block letters absolutely impossible to cover. Guy was an idiot in front, behind, forwards, and backwards. My friends called me Banana Man in high school. First sentence in and I'm already regretting typing this. Screw it. I had butt-length blonde hair that I manic-panicked totally yellow. When I'd get high, it was often the scene of me with my hair over my face looking like a banana melting into the couch, hence Banana Man. It also made an easy signature that I unfortunately can't draw here, so it stuck. Fast forward a beat and you have me, in the army, no more butt-length hair, drunk on my first Phase 3 outing. I'm feeling homesick and tired of the bullcrap, a typical moody new army recruit. I stumble into, yes, I was stumbling drunk, a tattoo parlor outside of Fort Lee, Virginia, and ask for a Banana Man tattoo. A lady there says she'll do it. Her excuse is she has fantasy items she wants to tattoo. Last month, she got to tattoo a toaster on someone, and now she gets to mark banana off her list. She draws me up a cartoon of a smiling banana half out of its peel, and my drunk butt loves it. Bam! Before I know it, I'm back at the barracks rubbing ointment on my upper arm. Now I'm in my late 30s and have had to explain this dumb freaking tattoo far more times than I'm comfortable with. I've got a few more tattoos now, and I love them all except this dumb, stupid, drunk purchase that I can't get rid of. At least when you drunk buy crap off of Amazon, you get to return it or throw it away. I'd love to cover it up, but it's that perfect size and shape that all my ideas amount to big black dot on the upper arm. I've even gone to a few tattoo parlors and had artists tell me it's either going to be a big black dot or you're going to see some of it. TLDR, don't get a tattoo if you're drunk. And don't trust an artist who's willing to tattoo you if you are drunk. I remember bleeding a lot.
What can kill you easily that people often underestimate? Staircases. Friend of mine slipped, broke his neck, and died. He was 21. As a kid, I remember trying rollerblades down the stairs. One moment, I'm on the top of the stairs, and the next, I'm waking up at the bottom of the stairs with no memory of having fallen. Only some bruises, and I didn't tell my parents in fear of the slipper. Someone else in the vehicle not having their seatbelt on. If your 150-pound passenger isn't wearing a seatbelt, they turn into an unrestrained 150-pound sack of meat and bone during a collision or rollover. That can definitely mess you up if they smack into you. When I met my husband, he never wore his seatbelt. I'm an easygoing girl who doesn't tell him what to do. Except for that. I said that was a deal breaker. So he wears his seatbelt now. Jump ahead a few years. When my husband and I were test driving his car, I turned around and told the car dealer to put his seatbelt on. He laughed. My husband was like, she's serious. You better put it on. I don't know why this makes me smile. Maybe the look on the dude's face when I lectured him about being a torpedo. I said I could not care less what happens to him, but he will not be killing me or my husband. This is how I feel about all reckless driving. If you want to put your life in danger when you're behind the wheel, do it alone on an empty road. If people want to gamble with their own lives, then fine. That's their prerogative. But they're selfish Fs when they put each other's lives at risk. Water. Lakes, pools, etc. People forget how easily their children or themselves can get into trouble while around water. Floating down a lazy river with some beer and friends is, I think, one of the greatest experiences in this life. The most recent time I did this, I drank a lot, and then got separated from my group. At some point, I was kicking to get my floaty to shore, and it suddenly occurred to my inebriated self just how much danger I was in. If I slipped off my raft, I gave myself 50-50 odds of being coordinated enough to get out of the water. At best, and there was no one around to help me. I made it, obviously, but I still shudder when I remember that moment. Perhaps the closest I came to death, and I've been hospitalized on multiple occasions. Yep, I'm a pretty strong swimmer, but it's interesting how even 100 meters stretches out when you're not in the pool, or have circumstances like inebriation or rough conditions. A brief moment of distraction while driving. Just driving in general, you're moving at a high speed in a metal box relying on paint and lights to guide you, while also hoping literally every other driver does the same and doesn't make a mistake. From an emergency medical services point of view, showers, smack, and motorcycles. But the number one cause of injury, according to an overwhelming majority of patients, is not doing anything. Ladders. OSHA posts workplace fatality stats online. Literally every other entry is someone falling to their death from the top of a ladder. The ocean. I live in Australia, and the people from overseas just don't understand how dangerous the ocean can be. Tip for a visitor if you come to Australia, make sure you swim between the flags. That way the lifesavers can keep an eye on you and stop you from getting into trouble. Visited Australia in the summertime a few years back. We went diving on the Great Barrier Reef. Everyone had to wear a jelly suit, full body, one piece, thin wetsuit type of thing, because there are jellyfish so small you can't see and are so powerful they can kill you. Even if you were just swimming, not diving, you had to have this suit on. Back on the boat after our dive, some folks on the boat are swimming and start lowering their toddler into the water to swim. No jelly suit. The boat captain starts freaking and yelling at them to stop. None of them speak English. It was crazy. One of the other passengers ended up translating for them, but I think the fear of the ocean got lost in translation. They didn't seem concerned. The ocean and its inhabitants are no joke. Also, people who are not in good physical shape at all and cannot swim very well in calm waters, thinking they can handle swimming too far out into the ocean because it seems calm enough. I'm from the US and only have experienced East Coast beaches, so nothing compared to Australia. People still underestimate how powerful the ocean really can be everywhere. Tylenol, number one leading cause of acute liver failure in the US. ETA. Tylenol is acetaminophen, also called paracetamol. The limit is 4 grams per day. That's just 8 extra-strength Tylenol pills. Other drivers, especially the drunk ones. The amount of children who are now orphans because someone decided to drink and drive is very depressing. Blood clots can form in your legs due to inactivity and then travel to your lungs, which is fatal. Can confirm. Was a fairly active 24-year-old college student when I was on bed rest for multiple surgeries. Ended up getting a pulmonary embolism and being put on warfarin for over a year. Best part was when I went into a walk-in clinic complaining of pain of an 11 out of 10 in my chest, and the doctor said I had acid reflux and I had to beg him to x-ray me. Still think back about how easily I could have died if I didn't insist on more tests. If this video is making you feel a general sense of nervousness, dread, and stress at the frailty of life, don't worry, that is happening to the scriptwriter, narrator, and editor of this video as well. Cars. I babysit and nanny for 2 different families, and all of the kids have said their parents let them not wear their seatbelts. And I'm like, what the frick, you could die. You will wear your seatbelt in my car, and I won't move until you do. Alcohol withdrawals. They are some of the worst withdrawals you can put your body through, and in some cases it's worse than smack withdrawals. A lot of substances can just cold turkey off, but I'd recommend weaning off alcohol slowly just so you don't shock your body so hard. This more applies to hardcore alcoholics and not so much to your occasional drinkers. I never knew this until 6 months ago. My dad is an alcoholic. Mum calls me up saying that he's firing his gun in the garage. I race over and convince him after 2 hours to get in the car. Take him to the hospital, and upon release, doctor says if and when he decides to turn his life around, do not stop drinking cold turkey. It will kill him. Alcoholic here. I've gone through withdrawal numerous times, and even then I don't think I've approached delirium tremens more than 3 or 4 times. You know that feeling when you hold your breath for too long, and your body is just going, "Fricking breathe, we need it." That's what it feels like when you're withdrawing from alcohol, except it's all over your body and there's nothing you can do but ride it out. It tends to come on anywhere from 8 to 12 hours after your last drink, and peaks around 12 to 14 hours after. I've read if you can make it 24 hours, your chances of having a seizure at all fall dramatically. If you've timed it wrong, you withdraw at night. Forget sleep. You're going to toss, turn, sweat, and if you're really unfortunate, you'll nod off a little and borderline hallucinate. It's not something I'd recommend. I'd say nighttime is the wrong time for it because, at least in my experience, if you can do it during a busy day, then you at least have crap to do that can distract you. The scariest thing is going through all of this knowing this might be the one that kills you. It's no secret that alcohol withdrawals can kill, at least among alcoholics. You lie on your bed and sweat, wondering if you'll finally have the seizure that sends you to rehab. Take it easy on the booze, folks. It's literally poison. Automatic garage door opener springs. Do not try and fix or replace them on your own. They're deadly. I can vouch for this. Not the deadly aspect, but the more dangerous than you realize, especially while standing on a ladder aspect. Lesson learned. Garage doors are seriously heavy, and those springs make it seem feather light. There's a crap ton of potential energy in them, and unleashing all of it at once is violent. I've heard that they can embed themselves in walls. Garage door springs are very high on my things to absolutely never F with list, higher than angle grinders and snapping turtles. Being knocked unconscious for too long is super bad for you. It's a lot shorter period than you'd think to get deadly. Some historians theorize that this is what caused Henry VIII to become so unstable. His horse literally flipped on top of him and he stopped breathing for a bit, was unconscious for a few days afterwards. He was very intelligent and a great leader before it, and ended up becoming super paranoid and violent afterwards. Stairs, especially for the 60-plus people, but anyone at any age can fall down stairs. Then they're in debt because of the medical bill and sometimes paralyzed, or your neck gets crunched and you die. This happened a couple of months ago. My sister-in-law's family had a family friend visiting them out of state for a couple of days. They said he would make comments about how steep their stairs were and that someone could easily die falling down them. Well, one night they heard a loud crashing noise and they found the guy unresponsive at the bottom of the steps. Was pronounced dead at the scene when the paramedics arrived. I kinda half-assed making sure both ways were clear before I crossed the road the other day. Then I suddenly realized that even though I do it every day, so it's monotonous and seems like no big deal, not looking both ways is the difference between getting across the road safely and getting hit and killed by a car on the way back from buying a can of Pringles. The narrator can confirm that once in a state of exhausted delirium after an all-nighter finishing an essay, he was struck a glancing blow by a car when he didn't check both ways on the road. Easy, deadly mistake to make, folks. Easter flowers. They've been known to kill dogs and small children. Highly toxic. I had a dog that ate one and I had no idea they were poisonous. Few minutes down the road and he started projectile crapping and puking in a circle. I thought he was going to die. It only takes a few for a human to ingest and it'll kill you. Those stupid yellow flowers people plant everywhere. Tulips, narcissus, and I assume daffodils, or maybe that's the same thing, and calla lilies will kill your animals and also you. I think irises are also on the no-no list. I'm glad your dog was okay. Crowds. The closest I ever came to death was being about 10 feet from the stage at Lollapalooza 94 when the Beastie Boys came on. Parliament Funkadelic was on right before them, and everyone was just dancing, nobody was rushing the stage. The Beastie Boys banner dropped, and I turned around to several thousand people running at me at full speed. I got caught in the pit, and I'm a small person. I was immediately pushed away from my friends. The Beastie Boys were actually yelling at the crowd, telling them that the ladies had as much right to be up front as the guys, look out for friends, etc. People were grabbing my hair and my clothes to stay up, because almost everyone around me was a shirtless guy and pretty slippery with sweat. All the air was up around 6 feet off the ground and I'm a whopping 5'3". Some very aware and awesome strangers noticed I was about to pass out and was only upright because I was being held up by the crush of people around me, and they passed me overhead to the security guys on stage. I easily could have died in that crowd. This is so true. I have a huge respect for folks who watch out for people around them in the crowd at live events. I was once knocked unconscious for a moment by an accidental elbow to the head from a dude next to me, and then came to my senses and realized someone was holding me by the armpits, not letting me fall. And I'm not exactly a small guy. If not for this stranger, I could have easily been trampled and injured seriously. So stay aware in the crowd, folks, for yourself and others. Deer. Stupid, paranoid murder machines with knives on their heads. Most animals will kill you for a reason, or to eat you, but not a deer. Fricking deer. Not only are they psychotic during mating season, but if you hit a buck in your car, the antlers can impale you if they come through your windshield. They are a lot bigger up close than most people realize. I've always found them kind of intimidating. A short fall. A friend fell from about 3 feet and landed on his head. You're still missed. Carrying a bunch of junk in your car. If you wreck, that crap will hurt and or kill you. A bag of canned dog food almost got me. Some diseases that are vaccinated for, such as measles and pertussis, whooping cough, are much more dangerous and carry a higher risk of deadly complications in infants and very young children than in older children and adults. This is one reason why the herd immunity avoided by widespread vaccination is so crucial. Infants cannot be vaccinated against such diseases, but their risk of contracting them can be greatly reduced by those around them being inoculated. Selfies in dangerous locations. I keep an eye on the Wikipedia list of death by selfie. In Nabarangpur, Odisha, India, a man tried to take a selfie with a wounded bear and was mauled to death. Good stuff. I live in an area with a lot of touristy spots near beaches, and some guy died because he was trying to get a selfie over a blowhole. Not next to, over, as in he stood on top of it hoping to somehow get a good pic of it blowing under him? Don't know the logic behind that, but yeah, he got blown off, obviously, into the water and got swept out to sea, all for the selfie. Somehow it feels okay to chuckle about people dying for the perfect selfie. Obviously it's a huge tragedy, but death resulting from trying to prove you're living in the moment feels oddly poignant. A single punch. It takes disturbingly little effort to kill a human. We are incredibly durable in most ways, but a solid punch to the throat or temple could easily kill on accident. Don't forget the chest. If you bop someone in the right place at the right time, off goes the heart. There was a youth lacrosse player a few years back that was working on his shot. One of his shots hit the crossbar and came back and hit him in the chest at the exact right time and killed him. There was also a minor league hockey player that died from a puck to the chest. The woods. People without much survival knowledge don't seem to realize that nature doesn't give an F about you. The weather, the wilds, the animals, all will kill you as soon as you mess up. I used to teach a wilderness survival course at a scout camp. Eagle Scout represent. A knowledge of how lethal mostly everything in the wilderness is sobering. Drink bad water, get the projectile craps and vomits, and die of dehydration. Eat bad food, or hell, just put food in your body that it's not used to, get the projectile craps, vomits, and die of dehydration. Get wet and stay wet, even in the middle of summer, probably develop hypothermia once the sun sets. Get an open wound, cut, or scrape, it's gonna get infected. Annoy a wild animal, get attacked. And it doesn't even have to be a big traditional predator like a wolf or bear. One kid at the scout camp had to be rushed to the hospital because he and friends cornered a raccoon and was annoying it. Another scout in a different troop got too close to a tom turkey and got mauled. So on and so forth. Yes, I love the woods and I spend quite a bit of time in them, but that means I have a healthy respect for what it can do, and I am prepared. Brain aneurysm. Can happen anytime. You can be the healthiest man in the world and take care of your body all the time and still die from one. And alligators. Eat my eggplant, jungle. Often, alligators paired with brain aneurysms, though the correlation has not been clearly established. Hippos. They may look like harmless, friendly giants, but if you get too close to them, they will absolutely mess you up. Giving birth. Just because we've been doing it for millions of years doesn't mean it won't kill you. Food. Plain and simple. Between unknown allergies, choking, foodborne illnesses, overeating, and a plethora of other possibilities, food is the silent killer that no one expected. Cows. Cows? Cows. They kill more people than sharks. How does a cow kill a shark? Thank you, commenters. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for that little exchange in this dark topic. This is dark, but depression. A lot of people think it's not as bad as it is, and it can get pretty bad. Not depressed anymore, but it was pretty bad, and your brain being so chemically ill, it will tell you things that you would really wonder how you believed it when you're not struggling anymore. This is very true. There's nothing worse than feeling worthless, even when you're surrounded by people who say otherwise. There's nothing worse than losing all enthusiasm for your passions. There's nothing worse than wanting to sleep so you can avoid the waking world. I've lost friends and family to depression. I suffer from it myself, and it's the only problem I can't seem to solve. One of my favorite descriptions of what depression and suicidal tendencies is like is something along the lines of, depression is like being in an upper floor of a burning building. Each day the flames rise up another floor. Some days the firefighters are able to bring the flames down, and other days the flames jump 10 floors. Eventually it gets to the point where the pain of jumping out of your window is less than the pain and effort of continuing to fight the flames. My therapist quoted someone who I can't remember now, but it was something like the above. David Foster Wallace from the novel Infinite Jest. Swimming in lakes, because there's amoeba and bacteria that can kill you if you have any open wounds or if it gets in your mouth and eyes. Brain-eating amoeba or Naegleria fowleri. It's found in drinking water too. Not living in an area where they're common? I think the greatest danger to me would be the mother fricker who's leaving scorpions in my shower. Fricking everything. Yourself. Between the ages of 10 and 34, taking one's own life is the second most common cause of death, second only to unintentional injury. On average in the US, there are 121 such incidents per day, and the rates in LGBTQ communities are 3 times higher than the national average. Be kind to yourself, people. Emus and cassowaries. Something emu war. Darn, foiled again. I mean, they're giant velociraptors. Who can blame them? Running in front of a train. Seriously, I see people do this a few times a month on my way back to work. If the arm is down, don't run, especially when there's more than 2 tracks. Nobody bothers to look down the freight train tracks. In South Florida, we just got a new passenger train running at 79 miles per hour, on tracks that formerly only had nighttime freight trains at 55 miles per hour. Current score is 7-0, with the passenger train winning against idiot pedestrians. Horses and horseback riding. Even decades-long experienced riders die from injury and accidents. It's not just the ones new to horses and the sport. A coach I had lost her husband in a barrel racing competition from injuries after a bad fall. I myself have fallen off and was stomped on by accident when the horse got upset in a storm. My spleen almost ruptured and I was off work for 3 weeks. They're large 1,200-pound squirrels that can and will spook at the most unexpected crap because it's hardwired into their instincts as prey animals. People don't understand that horses communicate with a lot of subtle physical clues that will let you know a few minutes in advance before it acts out of fear and or self-defense of itself or its herdmates and offspring. I'm constantly watching ears, eyes, hoofs, and leg positions, tail activity, facial expressions, and body posture when I'm grooming one of the horses. Both for changes in mood and because I know I'm doing my job right when grooming if the horse is truly relaxed and happy around me. Working with the horses I do and riding has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I love the animals I work with and care for, but I do not drop my guard when it comes to safety. Not only for myself, but also for the other barn girls and the horses. I would be devastated if someone suffered from something careless that I did. In conclusion, leave unfamiliar horses alone and never work around them without safety for yourself and the animals in mind.
Reddit, what's a secret your job keeps from the public? Olive Garden server, you can get 3 free wine samples every time you go. When we present yours and someone else's profile in front of an employer at the same time, a lot of times, one of you is there to make the other look better. About a quarter of all the gonorrhea we find is in the throat, and a new study suggests transmission from quote-unquote deep kissing. Not necessarily a secret, but it's challenging to get other providers to do testing for all sites at risk. Just a reminder, whenever you go for your routine STD testing, make sure every orifice that's touched a pink part gets swabbed. Worked in a no-kill animal shelter. The thing is, no-kill still does mean you have to put animals down sometimes. Especially behavioral issues are terrible. When is a dog too dangerous? Can you rehome a pit bull with a bite history? What if they get too dangerous for staff to handle? Especially when it gets out that we have to put a specific animal down and all those Facebook warriors start rioting and calling you names. It's not like we make those decisions for fun. I work at a cemetery, and I can confirm that the concrete or metal vaults that the casket goes inside of in the ground do not keep the caskets from getting wet. Actually, they do the opposite and just hold water inside. The sales team will always try to paint a nice picture in your head of what the casket/vault combo will look like in the ground, and it's a complete lie. One of many lies in the cemetery and funeral business. We claim to be a leader on the technology front, but we are literally running off of Excel macros with random codes that no one knows how to understand/correct without causing the entire company to crash. A lot of companies, even Fortune 500 companies, are just houses of cards. Shiny on the surface, then you get inside and you realize how much of the organization is dependent on Excel. You learn they're dependent on legacy systems akin to DOS, and you learn that things are constantly breaking, and the only thing keeping the whole company from imploding is people constantly fixing the things that go wrong. I work at a major chemical plant upriver from a major city. If it came out how old, run down, and poorly maintained literally all of the equipment that we use to make sure that hundreds of millions of gallons of contaminated water don't leak or straight up spill into the river, the EPA would shut down every plant on the river. However, the EPA is aware of how inefficient and poorly disposed all our waste products are. The plant I work for has a yearly budget dedicated to paying fines. Your child's school report is probably word for word the same as half of their class. There's only so many ways you can say, works hard but needs to focus on accuracy. At the hospital, they have secret employees who walk around to make sure doctors and nurses sanitize their hands before entering and exiting a patient's room. You'd be surprised how many don't follow protocol and end up getting written up in a day. The chicken bites aren't cooked to order. The fries look darker today not because they're extra crispy, but because the shift manager was too lazy to change the oil, which should be changed every 5 hours. The house sauce is just mayo, ketchup, paprika, and pickle brine. The sticky patch outside the bathroom might be pee. Worked in a library for 2 years. We don't make diddly squat from your book or DVD fines. They're designed to be a deterrent more than anything else. And under the right circumstances, we're very amenable to just making them go away. If you had a tough week and couldn't make it to the library to return your books, we could work something out. Laughing about being too lazy to bring them back / forgetting you had them entirely, yeah, those fines aren't going anywhere. That being said, libraries don't like to penalize people who can't pay their fines. If your kid has so many fines that the computer locks him out so he can't do his homework, we're usually more than happy to help you get logged on for the day. We want to give students the assistance they need, but if a school is the one to test / diagnose a child for autism disorders, then we are the ones that have to pay for all the follow-up medical help. All of our videos are made by the same people in the same building, and we just changed the text / logo. All of the interviews are scripted too. They literally feed the lines to the subjects. Because they don't want to pay us a fair wage or give us benefits, we also don't have to sign anything, meaning no NDA. Dodo / Thrillist / now this. Wow, I literally just got fired. It's not because of this post, I just think the timing is hilarious. We bill by the hour, but no one who works in this industry monitors their time closely. I work in a public library. Sadly, since we're open to all, we get a lot of indigent customers. In this day and age, that means a lot of opiate users, many of whom shoot up in our restrooms. We've had many overdoses, most of which are treated quickly and effectively by administering Narcan. However, that's not always the case, and some people are either beyond saving or are found too late. In 2019 alone, we've had 13 deaths. Security and the EMTs are always careful to make it appear that the body being wheeled out is only ill, so as to not freak out the patrons. The actual number of deaths is even hidden from the staff. I'm friends with a few of the folks in security, which is how I know so much about it. Edit. Obligatory holy crap, I did not expect this to get so much attention. A lot of people have mentioned installing blue lights as a deterrent. That's been looked into and discussed in depth. Unfortunately, what we've discovered is that they're largely ineffectual. When they can't see their veins, they just jab themselves until they hit pay dirt, and all it really does is increase the number of infections and abscesses. The bathrooms are going to be remodeled in the next year to make them less user-friendly, so to speak. Many people have asked where this particular library is. I'm not going to say. However, the fact that people have guessed San Francisco, Philadelphia, Denver, and even Canada illustrates that this is a widespread problem, and that we're sadly far from unique. Thanks to all the other library workers who have shared their stories below, it's unfortunate that libraries are forced to deal with social issues outside the scope of our normal operations, but I maintain that libraries are a foundational pillar of civilization. We now have several full-time trained social workers on staff to help deal with the situation and have effective programs in place to help people get their lives back on track. Most of the time, all it takes for a free upgrade is being polite. My manager will literally ask us, are they being nice? Unless it's the weekend/a show night. Then we literally do not have the availability. Yes, even if it's a show that you are not personally interested in going to. For everyone asking what I do, just assume it's like this everywhere, because it usually is. I'm a special education teacher, and the amount of injuries people sustain while working in this field is staggering. I teach high school, and the kids can go until they are 21. So most of the violent students are adult-sized. We get concussions, bites, broken wrists and arms, scalped, as well as inappropriately assaulted by students who will grab you by your breast, pull out their member, and start pleasuring themselves. By the way, I like my job very much and enjoy working with the students. However, there is little public knowledge of how dangerous the position is. We're supposed to be teaching information literacy, but none of us really checks to see if our student sources are legit or not. Edit. A lot of people are commenting about Turnitin. We use SafeAssign. Those are only capable of flagging for plagiarism. What I'm talking about is checking to see if when a student cites a source for a claim, if that source actually said it, and if that source is at all reliable. There's no software for that. The longer I'm in engineering, the more I know that we don't get the design right so much as we just go with the best we have the moment we run out of time or budget. Goodwill has their own landfills for things that don't sell. Things sit on shelves for weeks with continuous price decrease, then one last shot at selling at the outlet stores where everything is priced per pound. Also, I was just saying that because of the title. Don't get me wrong, the programs and community work they do is great. Municipal worker, we do actually work hard and care about the city, and it's hard on us when people stop/call to yell at us without getting all the facts and we know we can't really defend ourselves. Most of the time, you are reaming out a laborer who has no control over your taxes or which street is getting paved. Fellow city utility guy here, y'all motherfuckers have no clue how hard city workers actually work for you, how many people come in late at night or on holidays to fix shit, or how fast we actually do respond to problems. I'm sorry your crumbled curb in front of your house or whatever didn't get fixed this year, but we literally have 20 people for the entire city, and they are busy making sure you have clean and safe water 24/7, 365. And now for something completely different. If you're polite and it's the end of the day, I will give you free baked goods I made earlier. Delivery driver, we add 10 to 15 minutes on the estimated delivery times so we seem speedy and not seem late if we're stuck in traffic. We also charge delivery fees that most people don't notice or ask about. Yeah, I'm going to share my personal experience with this one. Some of my friends in need needed someone to spot them for delivery, so I would pay for their food. Grubhub is especially bad about this. I once paid double what my friend ordered because of delivery fees alone. In a perfect world where people are actually paid fairly, a $14 sandwich combo should not be $28 because of delivery fees. I used to work for a pesticide company spraying flies on farms. Some of the poisons we used were so strong that 1 pint added to a 500-gallon tank of water and sprayed could knock flies right out of the air immediately and was just as toxic to birds. In fact, we were told if we ever accidentally spilled a bottle of stuff on the ground, we should contact the EPA to clean the mess rather than try to do it ourselves. Ironically, by fall, the flies had developed such a resistance to the poison that the only way it would kill them was if you drowned them in it. Would still kill birds though. One last thing, it was an organic pesticide that could be absorbed through any unprotected skin of the human body. I worked there just 1 year because of this. I don't have a job, but back when I was 12 to 15, I would sometimes help out with the family businesses, which was selling coffee and twisted chips. When we first started, the thing that attracted people was that we would always have baked goods up for grabs, and everyone loved it. The reality was that we all bought it from Costco, put it in different packaging, and played it off as if we made them ourselves. This went on for 2 years within the business. Not my industry anymore, but banks would often make decisions that were probably technically illegal about which houses to repair. I currently work at a drug and alcohol rehab. Alcoholics Anonymous has an abysmal success rate if you measure success by continuous sobriety over a significant period of time. And that is how AA tends to measure it. But because one drink is considered failure, a lot of people drop out of AA out of shame, and it takes them a long time to get sober again, if ever. I've seen people with 20 plus years of sobriety beat themselves up and feel like failures over one night of drinking. Various harm reduction interventions have higher success rates. Harm reduction strategies measure success by drinking/using less often, in smaller quantities, and more responsibly. If you were pretty messed up all last year, but you're sober often enough to show up for work most days this year, that's success. Here's the big shocker. Most problem drinkers and drug users recover on their own without treatment. By recovery, I mean learning how to have a functional relationship with alcohol and drugs. I know a few people in our community that were court-ordered to rehab and/or AA years ago and stopped going as soon as they didn't have to anymore. They aren't 100% sober all the time now, but they go to work every day, they have happy marriages, they take good care of their children, they don't get arrested, and they don't get behind the wheel drunk or high. I'm not saying 12-step programs are worthless. Some do stay sober the rest of their lives and are happy. I think that's success, but it's not the solution for everyone. Unfortunately, rehabs that use different treatment models tend not to receive government funding. Courts tend not to refer defendants to harm reduction. And AA unfortunately perpetuates the myth that permanent sobriety is the only alternative to prison, the madhouse, or death, and that AA is the only place to achieve permanent sobriety. We tell customers that we have a supplier we get our parts from for repairs. Amazon. Our supplier is Amazon. Maybe not the public, but they'd probably be shut down if OSHA or the FDA found out. Current job at an HVAC company. My bosses in the office know that about half their employees, mostly supervisors, are doing drugs. From red-eye to hard drugs. Out on the road, on the roof, wherever. Bosses in the office might be doing drugs, and they even let us know every year about the annual drug test, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be random. Might not be. Still sketchy with regards to the above. Not like, you guys know what time of year it is, I hope you can pass. More like, the drug test is in 3 months. That's probably enough time to pass if you stop now, without actually saying anything that could implicate them. Also, they don't care if we're safe. They just want the jobs done because they overbook them and need us to move fast. One guy fell off a ladder from 25 feet. He's been doing physical rehab. They refuse to pay workers' comp for him, and they are trying to get him to come back to work when he literally shouldn't be doing anything other than lifting a cup for a drink. I've had multiple times where I want to put my harness and lanyard on because the roof is 30 feet or more from the ground, and my direct supervisor for that week gives me crap and tells me to hurry up because it's a waste of time. Most of the supervisors on the road don't wear the required safety gear when they should. Supervisors don't give a crap either. They just want to move fast so they can keep their numbers up. Guarantee if I got seriously injured, they would ask if I could still work, not call 911 to help me. Edit. I apologize in advance for how long this is. I got hurt today. Nothing major, I think. I had to take 2 6-inch and 12 to 15 feet hoses apart because we were leaving to go home. My supervisor, standing 6 feet away, sees me struggling and doesn't help. They were stuck pretty good. So I got angry. All the crap I dealt with this week ended up in me using all my strength to pull one of the hoses up to free it from the other one. It came up, and the metal end that connected it to the other hose smacked me in the arm, causing a huge bruise and popped a line of blood vessels right below the epidermis, and it started bleeding, but not profusely. This normally wouldn't bother me. I have a decent pain tolerance. Except the bruise is located on the part of my arm above where the tendons to your fingers are. I tore the rest of the setup down with one arm due to me not being able to touch 2 fingers together, let alone grab something. He didn't ask if I was okay or needed help. He just looked at me after I yelled, "Ah, frick!" and walked away and off the roof. Yes, I know this is my fault, not looking for sympathy or anything. Crap happens. Just an update on how crappy these people are on the job. Burger King worker here. The ice cream machine isn't broken. It just needs cleaning, which takes a long time. Cap. Stop the cap. Right now. I know this is anecdotal evidence, but come on. How many times have you gone to a Burger King or McDonald's or wherever, and the ice cream machine is quote-unquote broken every time? I'm advocating for corporate transparency. No, better yet, I'm advocating for ice cream machine solidarity. No ice cream means the world suffers a little bit more because of you, Burger King. Because of you. Lots of professors are winging their lectures, and showing up to office hours really does help your chances of a good grade. A former adjunct can confirm. Although, to be fair, those who do wing it generally know the stuff well enough that it's not an issue. I did it a couple of times for whatever reason, and it always ended up very poorly, so I pretty much always prepped. A lot. And yes, showing up to office hours really does help. The caveat is that you have to show up and show that you care and that you are putting in work. I've had students be surprised that I didn't bump up their grades because, after all, they did go to office hours. Once, at the beginning of the semester, for a very simple question. I've told this story before, but I had a class my freshman year that, honestly, I started skipping. It was early, the class was notoriously difficult, and I was having trouble grasping it. It was divided into 3 parts, 1 test after each third, and then a final overall. And for the first 2, I pretty much never went to class. First third, I didn't give a crap. Second third, I had a surgery on my foot, and it was tough for me to get across campus. After the second test, where I scored somewhere around a 20%, I realized I screwed up big time. I went to her after class and was like, "Look, I screwed up. Is there anything I can do to pass this class?" Needless to say, she was not impressed. She said, "All right, if you come to every, and I mean every class, and every single office hours, you might be able to squeak out a pass." Well, I'll be darned if I didn't go to every office hours, except one that I missed with the flu, on crutches, and worked my butt off to learn a semester's worth of material in a month. When I took the third test, I got the highest grade in the class, just shy of 100. She had mercy on me and let me retake the second test due to the surgery, and I aced that one as well. She told me that she was impressed with how quickly I grasped the material, and out of every student she ever gave that ultimatum to, I was the only one who actually followed through. Going into the final, I calculated that if I scored 100% on it, I could just barely get a B-, which honestly was more than I deserved given the way I ditched class all semester. I passed the final. When I checked my final grade, she gave me an A for the class. That taught me a valuable lesson about putting in the effort and going to office hours. Not at current company, but former one. Everyone had to take additional coursework on business ethics and anti-corruption laws because a subsidiary was found bribing officials to sell the company's products. A clinical trial for Parkinson's failed because of serious adverse events, resulting in at least 3 deaths related to the product. It's now being reformulated and will go through clinical trials again as an arthritis medication. Another clinical trial failed because it was found to be toxic for Asian blood cells. They had originally tried to bypass this by excluding Asians from the trial. Just to be clear, not all pharma companies are like this. There's always a few bad apples. If you get a call from a telemarketing or research call center, you need to specifically ask to be taken off the call list for them to stop calling. Don't be polite and make excuses. Don't mention that you don't have the time. Don't mention the time at all. Don't even just hang up. All of those will often have the company assume on a technicality that you could technically take the call at a later time. Just straight up ask to be taken off their call list or put on their do not call list. You didn't hear this from me. Not my current job, but I used to work as a front desk agent in hotels. Hotels can and do book more rooms than are available. Most systems allow sites like Expedia to book the hotel to 102%. Expedia bookings are the lowest priority. If you don't want to get bumped, book from the hotel's own website. Also, be aware that at midnight, the booking system rolls over to the next day. If you need a room after midnight, call the hotel. If you're a regular customer who doesn't tip your delivery driver, your order is never going to be a priority. I work at a university facilities department. My colleagues actually really do care about the students, student research, and opportunities at uni and beyond for students. This shouldn't be a secret, but I am constantly and consistently impressed by how much our electricians, custodial staff, EHS, you name it, care about the students excelling and achieving.
What's something harmless your parents did to you as a kid that really screwed you up as an adult? My dad was a huge yeller. Any little thing that went wrong was a full-on expletive-filled barrage. It never scared me or anything because he wasn't violent. However, in my adult life, my wife and I will argue and she'll tell me to stop yelling. I don't have the same yelling scale as other people, it seems. So I think I'm holding back and she thinks I'm yelling. It's very difficult to judge internally, but I'm working on it. My dad's yelling made me terrified of people raising their voices. Same. I full-on panic if I hear that particular tone in someone's voice, even if it's not directed at me. Fortunately, I'm not a yeller myself, though. It's actually really sad. I think his father was far worse, so it's just how he communicates, and I'm not sure he's aware how hurtful it is to others. I'm not yelling! My father yelling. Making it a rule that I could hang out with friends once a week until I graduated high school. I started losing friends very, very quickly. People just wouldn't invite me places because I could never go. The nights I could go out, I had to be back by 8. In high school, before high school, it was earlier. So I really didn't have anyone. Nobody wanted to hang out from 5 to 8 on a Friday night. They wanted midnight or so. I completely lack the confidence to make friends now. I haven't had a friend over in years. I'm 28 and my birthday is coming up. When I turn 30, I can't have a party. I'd have nobody to invite. I had a boyfriend throw me a surprise party for my 24th. His friends showed up and my family showed up. It was uncomfortable seeing like 10 people at a bar be my party when none of them were my friends. My brother ended up inviting his friends to add more people. My dad has an issue of making fun of people's appearances and then quickly saying, "I'm just kidding," followed by compliments. I've realized over the years that this has really messed with my self-esteem. It made me really self-conscious and I never really think I look good. I think in the father's defense, there can be an art to doing this with, and I can't stress this enough, with the right people. Don't do it to your kids all the time. My mum used to joke a lot about my looks. If I stayed in the car for something, she would say, "Show me your ugly face. Good. Now no one will want to kidnap you," etc. Everything she said was, "Because it's funny. You know I don't mean it. You love me because I'm like this." But all it's done is leave me with a mean sense of humor to train myself out of, and constant negativity about myself. I had kinda the opposite experience. My mum would tell me little tips on improving my acne without provocation, then try to tell me I looked just fine. Mixed signals about whether or not I looked fine or not has left me unable to see myself as attractive in any way. After hitting puberty fairly early, anytime my parents saw me in a bathing suit or a tank top and shorts or anything remotely form-fitting, they'd start making jokes about how I was getting fat and needed to watch out if I wanted to stay pretty. I doubt they'd even remember doing it, it was so offhand, but it stuck with me. I was never even remotely close to overweight. I was developing curves, like women do at that age, so by high school I had an eating disorder. I'm at my heaviest now, in recovery, and my BMI has never been above 22. But there's a voice in the back of my mind that I have to fight all the time that tells me actually, I'm on the brink of obesity and I won't be pretty anymore if I eat the second piece of pizza or if I skip out on my 7th day in the row at the gym. My parents did the exact same thing. Offhand little comments, I'm sure they never paid 2 seconds thought. That impacts me to this day. My mother was horrified when I repeated a comment she made to me as a teenager about me eating so much that I'd be as big as a house. Thought there was no way in God's earth she'd ever say that. And I'm like, okay, then why do I remember it 10 years later? And also, why do I have an eating disorder? It almost makes it more hurtful when it's offhand or unintentional. Then you second guess and wonder if they're making jokes to gently tell you their real feelings. Same as you, I've never realistically been overweight, but I have no ability to look at my body and see what's really there. But I'm starting to get better, and I'm glad to hear that someone else is too. Using fast food and candy as an incentive for everything. I was morbidly obese by 11, and high school is rough when you're heavy. It took most of high school to reach a normal weight, and I still count calories and watch my diet carefully to sustain it. There's ample evidence which shows childhood obesity has dramatic effects on adulthood health, even if you manage to lose the weight. I'm glad you lost some weight and are taking steps to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Thanks, it's been more effort to maintain over the past 10 years than it was losing the weight. About 95% of people who go on diets gain it all back or end up at a higher weight. The best way to avoid the trap is to avoid needing to lose weight at all, which comes back to parents helping their kids with healthy eating and exercise. My dad has a temper and yells angrily about everything. Not really at us, but if some little thing doesn't go perfectly the way he wanted, he will just start screaming about it. This has happened so often and still does, and it contributes largely to the severe anxiety disorder I have now. My dad would do this too. It would almost always cause me to start crying, and then he would start yelling at me for crying for no reason. It would get to the point where he would yell if he even thought I was starting to cry, even if I wasn't, and all that has left me with some bad anxiety too. My mum claims that he yells because he's partially deaf and doesn't know how loud he is, but I don't know if I believe that. I get this. I have sound-induced anxiety too because my mum's husband/sperm donor never spoke to me, only yelled at me. Even a car backfiring gives me a mini panic attack. I will mention that this seems to be one of the more common contributors to adult anxiety that has come up in this thread. Parents, save it for the occasions where it's really needed, if at all. My grandmother would never let me leave the house. Now I'm extremely antisocial. It's actually incredible with all the other stories I'm reading that are talking about parents who seem almost bat-crap insane. I'm hearing people who are 14 that were trapped in their houses because their parents were control freaks. I mean, when I was in elementary, I got bullied for never being cool and never being seen outside. I lived in a pretty bad neighborhood, but it wasn't a problem. You guys need to throw your whole parents away. They denied ever sending me and my sister to a day camp at which I was harassed by an adult. Being told that my emotions were wrong/not right. For all the good grades I had, I'm emotionally immature. Yeah, I was straight out not allowed to be angry. It wasn't a written rule, but that's how it worked. No matter the problem at hand, or even if it was a completely reasonable thing to be upset about, putting on an angry face, raising my voice, or changing my voice tone would result in my mother getting very aggressive. And suddenly the actual problem was forgotten, and it was all about the attitude. The only way to actually solve some problems was to repress anger as much as possible. But then she wouldn't take the problems seriously because obviously I wasn't upset over them. But saying something like, "This makes me very angry," even with a fully calm voice, would just get her angry because nothing was ever a reason for me to be angry apparently. But not for her. She could show her anger as much as she wanted. Then she doesn't understand why I don't like to share my problems with her. I guess she's like that because Grandpa used to be one of those angry guys who started shouting very loud at the tiniest issue. I didn't get to know him, but everything she's told me about him went in the same direction. So I guess she's just scared of aggression, and that's why she reacts so strongly to it. Grandpa likely wasn't allowed emotions as a kid. It was also times of war, which likely messed with him too. Sometimes people can be hard to understand, but there's always a reason. Cleaning. My mother always freaked out and screamed anytime something looked messy. The whole cleaning process, picking up items, laundry, dusting, vacuuming, was always a huge ordeal and never good enough for her. I hate cleaning and I try really hard to keep my apartment neat, but I always associate cleaning with screaming. My husband is more messy than I am, and I sometimes can feel myself getting overly agitated with him, and I try so hard not to scream at him over a pile of laundry. I relate to this so darn much. My mother has insane and arbitrary standards for tidiness, and if I don't do something right or don't do it exactly right at the right time, it's yelling time. Getting teased about being a girl just trying to be friends with everyone, including boys. Every single one of them was, "my boyfriend," or "I must have a crush" or something. It can't just be me wanting to have friends. To this day, I really can't get close enough to guys to have a serious relationship. That, and I have a neglectful father, and every time I consider it, I'm petrified of bringing home an actual boyfriend to meet the family because I don't want to be teased anymore. It made me just feel so uncomfortable about who I can, should, or want to be friends with because I'm paranoid my family is mocking me behind my back. It didn't even need to be a friend. Just any story about anything that had occurred at school that happened to have a girl involved. "Oh, who is X? Is she your girlfriend?" Nowadays it's, "How come you never tell us anything about your personal life?" I grew up with Indian parents in America. "Who are those girls you're talking to? Why are you talking to them?" Every girl I talk to they look upon with suspicion to the point where they took me out of school and did homeschool to avoid friends? Seriously, my parents ruined my social skills forever. All I wanted my whole life was to fit in, to be a normal kid. Now they get angry that I don't share stuff with them. I always log out of my social media so they don't view it, and they complain that I'm neglecting my family because I hang out with my friends. I just know I'm going to raise my kids better, differently. I will never trust my parents. As someone whose parents quietly despaired of him ever bringing home any sort of partner until it actually happened, I guess I got the better end of that balance. When I was potty training, my potty was in the middle of the room. I have vague memories of my mum's friends watching me poop and laughing at my poop when I stood up. These memories are confirmed by my mum after I asked her. I'm 100% sure that's the reason I can't poop in public, or even at home if anyone can hear me. If you were anything like my nephew, you may have demanded an audience in the first place. He drags his potty out from the bathroom to the living room and wherever the most spectators are. I can't fault his competence. "Gaze upon my works, ye mighty, and despair." My mum, jokingly, she says it was a joke nowadays, asked if I was pregnant every time my time of the month was late. I would spank my lower stomach for hours on end because I thought I was pregnant from sitting on the toilet. I was 12, and I didn't do the deed with anyone until I was 19. Anytime I would cry or express anger, I would be teased for being upset. "Aw, she's mad. Aw, wah. Oh, boo-hoo." I ended up shutting down and finding unhealthy ways to cope that eventually plagued my life in more ways than one. They always shrugged off my accomplishments of course you got straight A's, you're so smart, or "Congrats on this huge accomplishment, but I mean, we're not surprised." What they thought they were doing was complimenting me, and they were doing that. I never saw it was anything else until I grew up and realized I won't try at anything I'm not immediately good at, and feel inferior to anyone who's better than me at something. While they were complimenting my intelligence, they should have been complimenting my work ethic. Now, I struggle with a fixed mindset and feel like a big bucket of wasted potential because I'm so terrified of failure. It's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong, and we didn't know about the importance of grit and growth mindset back then. Ironically, a lot of smart kids get screwed over by a whole fixed mindset thing, even though they were complimented by it at the time. My parents do the same thing. Them giving me this expectation isn't helpful to my worrisome mind. I'm constantly expected to get better grades than my sister, even though she cheated on a lot of her work. I can account for my fear when my American history teacher told me that I got an 85% on my test. I ran to the bathroom and cried for about 30 minutes. Knowing my parents would be angry, I felt as if I was in a corner with nothing I could do. When she passed the grades out during class, the next day, I got a 95. I was really confused. I asked her about it, and she claimed she never said that I got an 85 on it. I looked through, and I really had a 95. I must have misheard or something, but it ended up seriously damaging my psyche. I seriously wish that I didn't have these expectations at all. I hope that nobody else ever has these, too. Watching my brother get praised for bringing it up to C's and rewarded with a dirt bike, while I sit waiting in the next chair to get reamed for slacking off and failing and then getting punished or grounded because there was one B on my report card. Then again, my dad's biggest parenting achievement was apparently, "At least I didn't get drunk and beat you all the time." Yay, thanks Yondu. I was raised in a church where virginity until marriage was sacred. I'd been a victim of the unspeakable act and repeatedly harassed as a child. The messages tumbling around in my mind growing up involved a lot of shame and being inherently unworthy of love. I'm finally in therapy for the abuse and more, and undoing the lies I learned so very well. Mum smoked 3 packs per day but didn't want us kids to be around the smoke all the time, so she set up her personal space, i.e. a chair where she reads books anytime she isn't working. Away from us, and we missed out on a whole lot of affection or interaction because of her habit. Took a lot of time and healing to have a healthy relationship with a woman. Happily married 8 years this coming October. Congrats on your marriage. Gosh, that's a mixed viewpoint. I mean, nice that she cared about caring for your health and well-being, but my God, interacting with your kids is so important. She could have taken down her per-day intake to exercise some care with her kids. My mum used to tell my sister and I that she was too claustrophobic to hug us. Didn't have that problem with our little siblings though. I guess the claustrophobia cleared up. My mom used to tell me stories about a big hairy spider that was gonna come bite me if I got out of bed at night. I still frickin' hate spiders. My mother got tickets for a small boat and canal tour in Amsterdam for the 2 of us. Somehow, as a little kid, I wanted to keep those tickets, 'cause why not? So instead of just giving them, she wanted me to practice mental calculation for a bit. So she gave me a few questions on the lines of, a ticket for an adult costs this much, one for a child, this much, how much should a family pay with X adults and X children? I got 2 or 3 right, the last one on the other hand, I couldn't get it right. She even asked me 3 or 4 times more for the last one, each time more aggravated than the last time. Last answer yet again wrong, and she got kind of too frustrated with me, and she tore the tickets up and the whole boat trip was probably awkward for me. Now, 10 plus years later, I realize I have a fear of failure. I'm scared to screw up the things I do, say, think, and even how I look. Even now, typing this brings me a bit into tears. Worst fear of failure is that I'm very quickly to think that I'll disappoint my parents and my current boyfriend, making me say sorry way too often as well. Moving around. By the time I'd finished elementary school, I'd been to 5 cities and 2 states. I became very good at making friendships and getting into relationships, but I had a very hard time keeping them. My parents were and are helicopter parents. Along with this, they didn't care enough to teach me valuable lessons or anything I'd actually need in life. It was all grades, 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 Allah, Allah, Allah. The result? I lacked many of the social skills people had, such as basic cooking, social skills, etc., and also had and still have social anxiety, especially with authority, even if I don't see them as a threat, which one time ultimately nearly made me take my own life. My parents wanted me to be happy, which sounds fine out of context, but no. I wasn't allowed to be anything but happy. You can bet I would have gotten a lecture for anything less than cheerful. Comfort is antagonizing. Disappointment and annoyance feels shameful, and to this day I don't fully trust anyone at all with my thoughts or feelings. My dad would often playfully hit me in the head with plastic bottles, rolled up newspapers, etc. He usually hit harder than he probably meant to, and then when I'd say ow, he'd tell me to toughen up, that couldn't have hurt, blah blah. Now years later, I still find myself flinching at the most random of things. Oof. There's a saying, all kids deserve parents, but not all parents deserve kids, and I've been thinking it the entire way through recording this. My parents would scream and fight over a lot of stupid things and then blame it on me and not my siblings. When they did that, they brushed it off, didn't think anything was wrong when I cried about it, and yelled at me for being dramatic. I'm a triplet and the middle child, so I always had to do stuff my siblings didn't. When I was around 10, my brother and I had a big fight, and I was forced into anger management therapy. But my brother wasn't, so it really messed with my head. They also talk to the other two a lot, and when I try to say something, they unconsciously ignore me, because they think I'll say something hurtful or stupid. My mum used to make fun of me for fulfilling manly stereotypes, such as only wanting to wear one pair of shoes, hated makeup and clothes, shopping, even as a teen, not being able to find something despite it being right in front of me, etc. I'm really insecure about my femininity now. So much to where if I do something annoying that's stereotypically feminine and someone calls me out on it, I'm secretly super flattered that they think I'm girly. I'm also bisexual, so being a woman who likes women sometimes makes me feel really masculine and uncomfortable, even though I know it's irrational. Just laughing at me for getting upset about something stupid and telling me how silly I was being. There's nothing wrong with that, but I was just a sensitive kid and took away from that showing your sad and upset emotions was bad and that it should be avoided in company of others at all costs. It really messed me up in the long term, and I didn't get help because I couldn't talk about it to my parents for the same fear of being laughed at. I can't blame them, and I really don't, because it's really something I see quite a lot of, and with 99% of kids, it's harmless. I, however, am still recovering from years of mental crap. Neglect. Neglect seems harmless. People are busy with their own lives, right? But that lack of love does terrible things to a child. Severe depression, self-esteem issues, trust issues, loneliness becomes normal. Numbness becomes a habit. I wish I were dead, but the medicine helps, a bit. As a child, my parents would send me to bed without dinner if I misbehaved. I'd be so hungry in the middle of the night and I'd scramble up to the pantry and sneak whatever I could, mostly snacks for school lunches. I'd sneak back, squirrel it down, and throw the wrappers away carefully. I was also raised as the good one or the people pleaser. I've struggled with secret eating, binging, portion control, and anxiety for as long as I can remember. Eating never made sense. Couple this with the people-pleasing, and I'm just a chubby, conflicted mess with a high tolerance for all kinds of narcissistic people. I'm a parent now, and it's all clear as day. I'm working on myself, and hopefully I can be better to my kids. Helicopter parenting. I was never out of my mum's sight. I know she's an abuse survivor of a bad home, and I know she really did mean well, but now I'm suspicious of everything and afraid to try new things. Both my parents would sometimes leave randomly without telling me. My mum would leave whenever she was angry at my dad, and I was so young that I thought she would never come back. My dad didn't like to talk about it, and it would sometimes be for extended periods of time. My dad would disappear to the bar and not come home until 1 or 2ish in the morning, where I lived with him. About 13 years old at the time. Neither one sees how this could have negatively impacted me. I still get very scared of people leaving me. They sent me to speech therapy when I was 12. Until then, I had no idea that I had a bit of a speech impediment, and while I was a bit shy, I never felt bad about the way that I spoke. Speech therapy would have been great if I'd wanted to be there. Instead, I was suddenly made to feel like I was terrible at talking, and almost as bad, being forced to fix the way I talked with a bunch of 3 to 5-year-old kids. I had my own teacher, but I still had to wait with all the smaller kids. I was so angry that I actively tried not to do anything that the speech therapist wanted me to do. By my parents' thinking, sending me to speech therapy was probably an investment for my future. Talking is one of the pillars of society, but 15 years later, I still occasionally feel extremely self-conscious about the way my voice sounds, and I dread talking with people that I don't know. I would never tell them this, of course.
People who have visited the US, what is your WTF America story? First night in Los Angeles, watched as a stolen cop car and a million cop cars flew past me down Hollywood Boulevard at 60 miles per hour at 10 p.m. Then I turned and walked back into the Thai restaurant where I watched the fugitive get PIT maneuvered and shot dead live on the news via helicopter chase cam. Dude sitting next to us was excited to tell us we had officially, quote, experienced LA. Over-the-top car chases, action chase cam news, neon lights in Hollywood, an Asian restaurant that made me feel like I was in an art film. He was right. I've told this story on Reddit before, but my biggest WTF was in fall 2005. Google Earth had just come out, and my colleague at the university lab and I were looking at it. She was a blonde bombshell from San Diego, and I'm a portly Indian boy. When I showed her Mumbai, my home city, she was blown away. You have buildings? Look, there's an airport. Oh my god, you have cars? How the heck do you think we got around? I asked. Her reply still rings on in my head. Not walking, not cows, not elephants, not bicycles, not horse-drawn carts. She said camels. If I ever saw a camel in Mumbai, I'd stop everything I'm doing and say, "Holy crap, that's a freaking camel!" Was at an all-you-can-eat buffet with the soft-serve ice cream machine. As kids, we thought we were being little pigs by swirling as high as we possibly could while our parents weren't looking, or they certainly would have stopped us. The guy after us grabbed a full-size drink tumbler and filled it up with ice cream. No shame at all, no childlike glee at making the mother of all Sundays. I suspect now it was something he did regularly. I'm English and visited California about a decade ago. We'd been staying in a small town called Mariposa while we visited Yosemite National Park for a couple of days. My friends had continued their road trip on to Vegas, while I had to head back down to LA and get the plane home. I was waiting for a bus to the station in Mariposa. It was raining, uncharacteristic for April, I was told. A pickup truck pulls up. The first thing I see is a huge dog sitting in the passenger side. Then an old lady, I'm guessing around 60, peers over and asks me, "Where are you heading?" I told her I was going to LA, and she says, "Me too, get in," and starts pushing the dog into the back. Partly out of politeness, but mostly out of curiosity, I jumped in. I think it was around a 3 to 4 hour drive to LA. As we set off, she starts listing all the things we have to do before we get there. Visit a friend to move a trailer, visit another friend who has broken her ankles to feed her dogs, visit a place where she could do her taxes. Quote, that should only take a few hours. It was going to at least double the journey time. Now, in my head, I was saying, heck no, I don't want to do any of that. But I found myself saying, okay. She was super happy. After about half an hour, we arrived at her friend's house. She had 2 huge dogs, and I found myself carrying an industrial-sized bag of dog pellets to fill a huge automatic feeder. While my new lady friend went to use the bathroom, the slightly larger woman that owned the house showed me photos of her daughter and asked me what I thought of her. I said she was pretty, which wasn't a complete lie. She told me she didn't have a boyfriend, and I nodded and smiled awkwardly. Then she said, "So you're going all the way down to LA with old lady friend, are you?" I saw my chance. Actually, I think it might be better if I get the train. Do you know what the next one is?" Slightly large woman checked the train times. Then she hollered out, "Old lady friend, he needs to get the train. The next one's in 20 minutes. Old lady friend rushes, as fast as a 60-year-old can, back into the room, shows no signs of being perturbed, says we better get going then, and we quickly get in the truck. It looks as though we may miss the train. Old lady friend is literally speeding down the road. She turns to me all of a sudden and says, "Has anyone ever told you about Jesus?" I tell her yes, that my parents have told me all about him. That doesn't put her off giving me a little speech, and I don't say anything to stop her. I just smile and thank her. As we get closer to where the station is supposed to be, she winds down her window at some lights and shouts to a surprised dude on the street, "Where's the station?" before accelerating hard and speeding around the bend in the direction the guy pointed to. We get to the station and there's time to spare. There's a bit of a queue at the ticket booth and I say thanks and take my place in line. After a few minutes, I reach the front and buy my ticket. I turn towards the platform and feel a tap on my shoulder. Old lady friend is standing there, apple in hand, a big smile on her face. She presses the apple into my hands and places her hands around mine. She bends her head in prayer. What she said, I can't remember. I was too busy looking at all the people staring at me, an old lady whose head barely reached my chest holding my hands. Amen. Without another word, she walks away. The train arrives, and I leave. I need a movie made about this now. This is such a good story. When I went to Florida, I was stopped by the police for jaywalking. I protested that the road was clear, so therefore safe to cross. He said, "I don't know how you do it in your country, but here in the US, we take road safety seriously." Aghast, I explained I was from England, and my only knowledge of jaywalking was from Lethal Weapon 3, and I believed that it was just a made-up law that they used in the movie to sass people. He chuckled and said, "That's a great movie. I prefer the first." I agreed and said it was by far the best. After a brief chat about the entire Lethal Weapon saga, he said, "In the future, make sure you use the crossings." I agreed, but asked in a pretty decent South African accent, "What if I have diplomatic immunity?" He chuckled, nodded his head, and pointed to the crossing and said, "Cross there, enjoy your vacation." And off he went. It was the highlight of my holiday. I went to Disneyland in Anaheim, and it just struck me that there were a large number of disabled people out and about enjoying the rides. I'm from India, where there is no shortage of disabled people, but it was just the sheer number of disabled people that made me extremely happy that the park was accessible to everyone. "You done good, America," I said to myself as I ate some horrible, expensive fried thing. I later realized that most of those people were not disabled, but fat people on scooters who did not feel like walking. Where do I sign up? According to New Yorkers, my mother and I can't possibly be Portuguese. Apparently, we're Russian, Other than, incredibly nice and friendly. I loved it. Korean friend who just got off the plane in Atlanta. So many big fat black women! Yes, he said it loudly and in public. But my favorite was a Japanese fellow who went to a buffet with a group of friends in Vegas. He sits down and his plate looks like a normal little meal. We all have heaps of crap all over ours, and his eyes bug out that we have so much food. I said he's really going to freak out when he realizes this is only our first plate. A couple. I went to university at Cal State Fresno. I was a country boy from Canada. When I was there, the entire downtown of Fresno was boarded up and you did not go there after dark. Actually, anytime. And a full-blown gun/gang fight outside of my apartment in Clovis, a suburb near the university. For a kid from small-town Canada, that was mind-blowing. When I first moved to America, one of the first things I saw after leaving JFK was a homeless man pleasuring himself outside of Union Station. It wouldn't have been that strange, except I had heard a lot of things about New York City from people who had been there, or knew someone who knew someone, etc., and I was worried what I was seeing was just going to be an everyday, everywhere thing all throughout the country. I saw 50 chicken nuggets for $5. There was a place called Norma's in Washington State, somewhere rural. Anyway, it was like a shrine to George Bush. The owner was a guy, and the back of the menu had his face with the quote, "Just call me Norma" on the back. Best burger I ever had, called the George W. Bush burger. Not my story, but my mom's. And instead of visiting, it was more like a people who have immigrated to the US, what is your WTF America story? So it's the early 1980s, and my mom's plane touches down in LAX from Tokyo. As she was collecting her luggage and waiting for her friend to pick her up, a Hare Krishna, which she had never seen before, came up to her and asks her, in English, if she could donate a few dollars. My mom, who only had a few yen and a poor grasp of English, tried to explain to the Hare Krishna that she couldn't understand him and that she had just arrived in the United States. The moment she started talking to him in Japanese, he just gave her some of the money he had and went on his merry way, leaving her at the luggage carousel confused as heck. I asked an old lady if it's true all Americans carry guns. She smiled and pulled a revolver out of her purse. She was a nice lady. I was 12 years old when I spent a month in Minnesota. I remember going WTF, or at least a French equivalent, when we went to Mall of America and I saw the freaking roller coaster inside of it. Edit. I'm not Canadian. I come from the old continent. Back home we would say something like, Putain! Yes, it means unfaithful woman. But I wasn't using curse words when I was 12, so I probably shouted, oh la vache, holy cow. Minnesota is awesome when you're 12. Now that I'm all grown up, I'd like to go to LA or New York City, but nothing beats fishing and horseback riding when you're a preteen. Canadian on tour in America witnessed an enormous man at a Big Boy in Wisconsin pull out 5 jumbo freezer bags and fill them to the brim with sausages from the all-you-can-eat buffet. He hid every bag between the overhang of his belly and sweatpants, then filled a full plate of sausages and proceeded to sit calmly at his table and finish them. Canadian was in a gas station waiting to pay before prepaid took over, and a couple of guys with handguns and holsters were in line in front of me, resting their hands on the guns. Not so much WTF, I knew to expect it, but it's a memory I think of often. Edit. I know nothing about guns or the proper terminology, but I have lots of questions about the exact posture in my inbox, so I'll try to clarify without angering more people. It wasn't a threatening, I'm about to draw my gun pose. It was more of a, this is just a comfy resting place for my hands pose. Like when you hook your thumb on your belt and let it hang there. Except near your gun. Anyway, my original point wasn't that I thought they were going to draw. I was just shocked seeing a couple of guns like that. It had never happened before. Me paying at a gas station. Attendant hears I have an accent, smiles at me. You speak English so well. Thanks. Although I should do. I'm from England. Cue confused look. Wait, they... She trailed off. Speak English there? Her colleague stared at her in open-mouthed disbelief and then broke out laughing with the other customers. She looked mortified. To be fair, I felt terrible for her. She was only trying to be friendly to a foreigner. I'm from America, and I have a friend from Australia. It amazes him that there are so many flags everywhere. Apparently, that is a distinct USA thing. He'll make jokes about how we all forget where we are. Was in northern New York, near Buffalo, and a waitress overheard that I was headed back to the Pacific Ocean. She asked where I was going, and I said Vancouver. No, honey. Vancouver is in Canada, and that is on the Atlantic Ocean. I said, Canada is from sea to sea, just like America. She replied, no, that's not right. Only America is from sea to sea. The combination of her being absolutely sure about something and her total ignorance was surprising enough, but the fact that she felt she could basically interrupt our conversation by telling me I am wrong about what ocean I live beside was weird. French ex-exchange teenager in Cali here. Summer 97. I was young and missed the field trip bus to Disneyland from San Diego, so I did something pretty stupid. I hitchhiked to go there by myself. Dude who took me looked like a plaincloth cop, but a good buddy. When he heard I was French, he told me to never ever hitchhike in USA because it's pretty dangerous. Plus, people could assume I'm a serial killer. So I boasted, look at you, you don't think I'm a serial killer. I'm not that dangerous looking, or you're a careless. He told me to open the glove box in front of me. There was a supposedly loaded, freaking Desert Eagle inside. He dropped me at the bus station and insisted to give me $10 for a ticket. I had cash, and waited for me to go in the bus. TLDR, still don't know if plaincloth angel or Zodiac killer. Do you have cell phones in Norway? This was in 2012. Kids nowadays get an iPhone and or iPad before they're born. I'm Canadian, and I went down to the US to do a little shopping. I accidentally pulled out some Canadian bills, and the cashier asked why I kept Monopoly money in my wallet. Edit, a lot of people are saying it was just sarcasm. I don't think it was. The cashier looked around 16 years old. She had probably never seen Canadian money before. When I started awkwardly chuckling, she had a puzzled look on her face. But who knows? Maybe she was just really invested in a joke. After moving from Africa as a teen, I am repeatedly asked why I moved to Africa in the first place, to which I replied that I've always lived there. I am also asked, so why are you white? To which I reply, oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white. However, when they reply with blank stares, I realize they aren't referencing Mean Girls. Some other questions. So, Africa is one country and all the borderlines are, like, states? Are there, buildings? You guys have memes over there, right? Are you Australian? Australian here. I went to Houston last year and spoke to a girl my age in the airport. We got chatting about uni/college. It was around July, and she asked me if I was on my summer vacation. I casually explained I was on my winter break. She was genuinely confused and did not understand how it was summer in the US but winter in Australia. I tried to explain, but eventually gave up. This next one has layers. I was complimented on my excellent English by a girl from Ohio. I'm Canadian. She thought we all spoke German. Canada, the country best known for speaking German. Not that there's already a country whose language is named after the country it originates from. When I started chatting to a cashier, she squealed and asked where I was from. I told her Australia, and she instantly dumbed down how she spoke. Do y'all speak English down there? I replied sporadically. She laughed and informed me that wasn't a word. When I went to the US the first time and ordered a meal from Burger King, ordering a large fry, Coke, and a Whopper, I was blown away by the size of it all. Each item was larger than the same item back home. I was already like WTF, but then the cashier said I could have a second Whopper for $1. Again, I was like, what the heck? Sign me up! Another time, while I was in Daytona, I went to a restaurant and the woman kept refilling my drink again and again. Being a bit shy, I didn't tell her to stop and expected a bill with $15 for sodas, but then I found out the refills were free. What the heck? Free refills? I'd only seen that at places like Subway, but so many restaurants in the US had free refills. I love the US for restaurants and food in general. The portions are massive and very reasonably priced. Went to Walmart. The fabled creatures there are just as the internet portrays them as. Nonetheless, still mind-blowing. With all the Australian replies in this thread, I can only imagine someone dressed like Steve Irwin running around a Walmart, squatting down in front of the average shopper and exclaiming, "Whoa, now there's a beauty! Overweightus americanus, known for their impulsive spending habits. These babies can grow up to 158 kilos!" How spread out everything is. Like, it's pretty much impossible for me to survive without a car, while everywhere I needed to go on a regular basis back in London was in a 10-minute biking distance. Also, the number of pickup trucks people own without needing. It has come to my attention that the city I live in, Jacksonville, Florida, is the widest city in the 48 contiguous states of the US, with a population of just under 1 million. That explains a lot. Not gonna lie, I personally hate needing a vehicle to navigate a city. Like, what's the point of having everything in one spot if you're just going to have to drive to it anyway? It defeats the purpose entirely. Any contractors or civil engineers willing to answer this question in the comments? Let me know. Not mine, but someone posted a while back about his British boss getting pulled over for speeding. As is the tradition in England, he got out of the car to meet the police officer, and it went about as well as you'd expect. Went to a club the other day and got frisked by a door guy wearing a bulletproof vest. That was interesting. Every single one of you jerks asked me where in England I was from. I'm from Australia! Pretty much as far away from England as you can get without leaving the planet. A universal WTF for both foreign and US citizens, the Golden Corral. Everything was submerged in liquid butter. The patrons were larger than some cars. I'd never been out of Australia before. In Australia, only farmers and cops have guns, and some criminals, I guess. So I had never seen a gun that wasn't in a cop's holster in my entire 30-year existence. We go to the US for our honeymoon and have the honor and privilege of visiting a Walmart. The guns are just on the shelf. You can touch them. A fellow Aussie friend who was with us at the time asked the cashier if she could hold one. He looked at her as if she had asked if it was okay to breathe the store's air. "Can I hold one? This big one?" she asked, incredulous. "Sure, if you want to," the guy said, confused and bored at the same time. She picked up this huge gun. Sorry, not a gun guy. Don't know what it was. It was about the size of a shotgun, but was bulkier, and was getting us to take photos of her with it. If I had a gun like that at home and walked outside my house with it, someone would drive past and see me in about 10 seconds. They would call the cops, which would take about 30 seconds. The police station is just up the road, so I estimate a cop car would arrive in about 3 minutes. And it would take about 10 seconds for a cop to ask me politely to jump in his car and come for a nice chat down to the police station. But it'll be fun for about 4 minutes. That thing is $10. That's good. I have a $10 note. I can buy that thing. Oh, wait. I went to Applebee's. Mistake number 1, I guess. I was then served by a nice young lady called Brittany who asked me with a serious face if we have trees in Scotland. I'm from the UK. Lived in the US for about 5 years now. Few things that annoy me. You want to get a loan for a new car? There's a fee for that, on top of the interest. You want to take money out of the ATM? There's a fee for that. You want to exchange some currency? There's a fee for that, on top of the exchange spread. A product has money off? You'll have to send something to receive it. They hope you can't be bothered. Pretty much any service, someone will try to make a few extra dollars off you. Was in Spokane at Silverwood, amusement park, and asked where the washroom was. I was promptly told there were no washrooms in the park. This happened a good handful of times, and it never even occurred to me that I had to say restroom to receive any real help. I'm Canadian and have visited the United States multiple times, and have had an overall enjoyable experience on each one. I wouldn't blame this on America, but I saw a fat, bald, middle-aged man standing on the side of a Pennsylvania highway with bunny ears. I'm sure this happens in Canada too, but this is the first time I've seen something like this. Easter Bunny has had a rough few years. People just don't care about Jesus coming back anymore.
Men. What's something that would surprise women about life as a man? I'm a guy with kids and a wife who is a nurse that works nights. It's almost impossible for me to go to do stuff with them without someone saying something about daddy duty or mom got a free day today, huh? It's ridiculous. Not every male with a child out there is some deadbeat parent who only hangs out with their kids when they absolutely have to. As a single dad, I can relate. People act like I'm on some extreme adventure of babysitting, when in reality, I'm taking my 2 kids with me grocery shopping. I'm a single dad 24/7, it's my life. No biggie. My ex and I separated 6 weeks ago. Yesterday, I took my 14-month-old daughter to a parent and toddler group, and a woman there asked me if I was babysitting. I was absolutely frickin' livid, but I couldn't and wouldn't let on how I felt. I had to settle for, "No, are you?" No idea whether she got the message or not, but the look of confusion on her face was nice to see. This sort of post has come up in the past, and overwhelmingly, men say they don't get sincerely complimented often enough, so when it happens, it sticks with them for a long time. I had such an opportunity at the grocery store a week or so ago. A man was walking toward me and I noticed he had a nice beard, so I decided to tell him I liked his beard. He smiled and touched it and said thank you. I feel like it was a small but good deed, and I hope it sticks with him as the genuine compliment that it was. Bearded guy here. Whenever I got complimented about my beard, mostly by men, a little flower opens up in my heart. We definitely enjoy compliments. I just got out of a 4-year relationship, and during some reminiscing thoughts, I realized she never once told me I looked nice or called me handsome or anything. I told her she was beautiful every day for 4 years, and I don't even know if she found me attractive. I have high self-esteem, which is probably why I didn't notice it was going on until after we broke up. I learned a long time ago that no one is going to love me the way I love me. She was a good girl. I'm sure she didn't realize she was doing it. It sucks. I've been there. We're also the ones that are supposed to initiate doing the deed when we don't even know if our girl is attracted to us. I've never felt the same longing in my life that some of these gentlemen do, but it's definitely a valid one. Positive affirmation is never a bad thing, even if someone doesn't necessarily show how happy it makes them. Some of us are just bad at taking compliments, but they do appreciate them. The biggest turn-on for a guy is if she shows interest in you. That's seriously the number one thing on my list of things that makes women attractive to me. And that's a problem, because I often find myself in relationships that aren't healthy in the long term for me. But holy crap, when a girl shows interest, it's like all the other items on my list of things that are good for me when a partner is concerned go out the window. And I brush off and justify all the things I've literally internalized as bad for me. Like, for instance, a girl who isn't innately curious has no potential for me. And I know this, but if any girl shows interest, it's like, give it another chance. It'll work out this time. It's different because she likes you a lot. Scumbag brain and scumbag pee-pee collude on a lot of this stuff. It's stuff like this that gets me some of the most. Constantly being the one who had to take the risk, put their foot forward first, take charge first. It's exhausting. Like, sometimes, couldn't you just decide where to go? Couldn't you sometimes initiate intimate moments? Couldn't you sometimes message me first? I finally found the girl who I think I match with damn near perfectly, but the communication is such a huge issue. It's exhausting, and if we don't fix it, this will stagnate, and I'll never feel like it's right. But she is an attractive girl in a world where her social media posts gets all of the attention, and as far as I can tell, all of her conversations are initiated by her friends. I don't think she understands what it's like on this end. She has a huge network of people interested in her. I'm just an average Joe with a few good friends and some acquaintances I'm friends with. We pretty much go through life unnoticed, save for negative attention. I've been going to a pet supply store for about a decade, and although I'm always greeted nicely, I'm generally left alone. I walked in with a baby in a carrier one day, and I was greeted by everyone, and every single employee went out of their way to ask me what I was getting and if they could get it for me. I was fully capable of getting a 30-pound bag of dog food and the baby, but one employee simply wasn't having it. He ran back to grab the food and carried it to the checkout and then carried it to the car. I was shocked. I told my wife about it and she said, "They do that every time you go there, don't they?" Apparently, this is the customer service she receives every single time she goes there, or pretty much anywhere with decent customer service. She was shocked to hear that I didn't receive the same service. Me too. I love taking my 8-year-old daughter shopping because everyone is so nice and smiles at us. I'm a big scary guy, 6'4", 280 pounds, so no one smiles at me when I'm alone. 1. How much we would like to feel wanted and not simply useful or needed. 2. How much pressure there is on us in terms of body image. We hear about all the crap women go through, but do you ever stop to think about all the eggplant-sized jokes? That alone can cause insecurity, and that doesn't even touch things like losing your hair, graying, muscle mass, etc. That we really do care a lot more than society says we do. We're just not allowed to show it because that's a sign of weakness, and we're taught at a young age that you have to put up a perfect image or no one will ever want you. The first point hits home for me. Sometimes I confide in my wife that I don't feel wanted, and she gives me a crooked look. She goes on to explain all the reasons I'm useful and needed in the household, but never expresses how or why I'm wanted. I like kids. Kids are funny, they like breaking rules to have fun, and they still have an imagination. I don't screw kids. Hell, I hardly screw adults either, but that's beside the point. A girl I went on a date with last week showed me a picture of this adorable little boy, her neighbor's son, and told me she sometimes goes to her neighbor's house just to see him. When I told her that I didn't think that would ever be the case for me, she seemed sad and asked why. I'm a guy. Hello, Susan. It would make my night if I could take your goofy 6-year-old daughter out for ice cream. I've had a very depressing day. You can F off before I call the police. How's that? That works too. Have a nice night. See you never. It's the same for me. I always tickle-thought my children, and we're totally goofy. I just love children. They're clever and funny, cute, and have awesome imaginations. But no matter how cute somebody else's child is, I would never want to be alone with them or get into a tickle fight. You know, I almost put touch them on the last sentence, but in my mind I thought, oh man, that would be bad. When in my brain I was thinking, picking up a 2-year-old and saying hi to them. Society is sick. I volunteer at an after-school program. Every so often one of the kids, maybe 12 to 15 years old, will see me on the bus, run over and talk to me. And I'll feel the eyes of every single woman on the bus, making sure everything is cool there. I've had more than one woman ask, "Is he bothering you, honey?" Or switch seats so that they have a clearer view. I'm a clean-looking 34-year-old dude in a suit. That would never happen to a woman, and it's kinda sad. It's interesting, isn't it? Even as a guy who's worked with kids, I feel like I would make the same assumptions about seeing these guys do this, and I don't see how to change it on a societal level. Men have just as hard a time overcoming stereotypes as women. You, a woman, want to learn how to ride a motorcycle or want to be a programmer, and you don't want to be a housewife or spend all day cooking? Good for you! You, a man, don't want to cut the grass or learn to fix your car by yourself, and you want to spend all day cleaning the house and sewing pillowcases? Wake the F up and support your family. I get dirty looks anytime I mention that my wife does the mowing and most of the raking, like I've failed as a husband. If anything, I've won as a husband. I've got a wife that loves me enough to do the hard, annoying work because she knows my allergies will knock me on my butt. Same with cooking. Oh, giving the wife a night off, eh? Hell no. I cook every night. She knows I hate doing the dishes, so we made a deal. Man, this angry rant made me feel good about my wife. Haha. The book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg actually described this pretty well. She said life as a man or woman is like running a marathon. With women, people from the sidelines are saying, "You can quit whenever you want, it'll be okay," which signified lower expectations professionally. Whereas men, people from the sidelines are saying, "You can do it, just finish," which signified people telling men to stay and keep going regardless, even if that's not ultimately what they wanted. It's hard not to want to disappoint or be judged by others. That metaphor really resonated with me, because the pressure is pretty real on both sides for these really real reasons. My ex fell into a trap of unrealistic expectations. She told me outright that she couldn't stand the fact that I didn't know what she was thinking without her telling me. Do I look like a freaking mind reader? I'm not completely awful at taking subtle hints, but I'm only human. If you tell me you need to go to a certain store to pick up a certain thing, and you say it in passing and never bring it up again, how can you possibly be mad at me a week later for not having taken you to said store? Take yourself to the store. Wait for Christmas and I'll buy you that coat, because I'm not that clueless and I will remember. Married almost 5 years. Made a separate Etsy/Amazon account for the husband. I go on there and make wish lists and never check the order history. Helped tremendously. One year I told him I need panties. I got 47 pairs for Christmas and nothing else. Dish towels for my birthday. Yeah. Wish lists save marriages. I remember my wife asked me years ago, "Hey, get any compliments on your bald head?" It was a drastic change, shaved head. She thought it fit my style. At the time, I only worked with guys. She looked amazed and shocked when I laughingly replied, "Are you serious?" I doubt anyone noticed. She thought I was heartbroken, but in reality, I would have been surprised if anyone did compliment. It's very rare to find a company or place of work that allows men to follow a seasonal dress code. It's really hot in the summer? Women can wear dresses or skirts, men are still wearing suits. It would be nice to be able to wear a nice pair of shorts if it's really hot out. The company where I used to work allowed men to take off their ties if it was over 90 degrees in the office. Can't get more accommodating than that. Haven't seen this one yet. My girlfriend was absolutely bamboozled by the fact that our family jewels can be raised or lowered by flexing. I mean, she was speechless for a good 3 minutes. Just to clarify, it's the cremaster muscle. Imagine you are trying to cut a pea short, now hold that flexed muscle. This works best when it's hot out and balls are hanging low. You will see the jewels move upward all the way to the base of your girthy manhood. Wait, what? Be right back. It's been 2 hours. For God's sake, man, are you all right? He may have overclenched. Get the tongs! From my experience, women talk about the act of doing the deed with their friends much more, and in much more graphic detail than men talk about the same subject with their guy friends. I guess my point is that men aren't as sleazy or gratuitous as most women make us out to be. Conversations with me and my dudes about doing the deed? Friend 1. So how did things work out with her? Me. Oh yeah. Grins slightly. Dude. Nods in satisfaction. That's literally all there is to it. I mean, some men are still way too into trying to talk about the details of their encounters in the most graphic and disrespectful way possible, But my first man here is right in that they are in the minority. The complete and total lack of regard or value for our own lives, both internally and all too often externally. I don't mean to pick fights here, but when you hear about women and children first, men must register for the military draft, etc., it gets ingrained into you. You learn slowly but surely that your value is contingent upon what you do and not just who you are. You never feel truly satisfied just being there, just existing. You always feel like you have to constantly be working at something. And God forbid you ever become unemployed. Then you're essentially invisible. A homeless woman is often seen as more of a pity or someone to be sympathetic to. She must have been abused, had the unspeakable acts committed against her, etc. A homeless man? He's seen as a threat. He's seen as an outcast. There's little sympathy, even though, oftentimes, he may have gone through those exact same issues as the woman. It often feels like, on a certain level, society tends to see any problem that women have as being externally caused, whereas men's issues are often seen as his own failures or doings, etc. Men's problems are seen as being internally caused. Men are seen as having more control, which can be beneficial if you're wanting to be in a position of esteem and power, but it can also be harmful if you're struggling with mental illness or just to make ends meet. And that's why, I think, we so often refuse to seek help. We don't want to admit that a problem might be there, because we're afraid it'll turn into an indictment of ourselves, and no one will sit there and say, "It's not your fault, you're good enough, you're valuable just as a human being." Because I've never felt that a man's life is seen as unconditionally valuable. It's valued so often based mostly on what he does, or failing that, doesn't do. Women and children, by contrast, are valued just by being. It's a bitter pill to swallow once you grow up and become a man. You still remember being valued, but it's just not there anymore. You're supposed to have all this control, but you don't. Eventually, that pill all too often becomes literal. That's why we turn to green herb, doing the deed, video games, painkillers, adult flicks, the internet, social media, alcohol, smack, wherever we can escape to and pretend that we have control through or value in. We're taught from a young age that things don't happen to you, they happen because of you. You got a raise at work? Clearly you're a hard worker. Have a wife? Obviously you wooed her correctly. Got divorced? You messed up. She just fell out of love with you? You should have fought harder for her. You're depressed? You need to suck it up. It's so lonely. Hugely important issue. Everyone, and in my opinion, especially men, should read this recent article on loneliness from the New York Times. Now, I've noticed a couple of things that relate to this issue. First of all, I've observed men form deep friendships and relationships generally, through shared experience much more than talk. It simply doesn't feel like support if you're just talking to me about me unless we've seen some crap together, which is a key difference for women. I've observed women mostly feel the support of strangers, which does not happen for men. The void that is male loneliness can be filled by camaraderie of joint work on a project, of following a team, or scientific, political, business venture for us nerds, all together, and of discussions or arguments that may seem idiotic or too distant to be the true issue. At this point, I'm mostly just talking out of my butt, but I remember that convincing men to talk about personal issues is usually like convincing a wall to talk. Instead, take me out to a movie, to a diner for a milkshake and a silver cup. Go to the fricking gym or to a cooking shop or craft class. Second, I want to talk about older men for a second with regards to loneliness. If the things I've said above apply to us 20-somethings, they apply tenfold to the generations before. Many older men have lost some or all of the friends that shared their experiences. To cancer, murder, time, etc. These friends are gone, and it is, or seems nearly impossible, to form a comparable replacement. So older men don't even try. They may form surface friendships at the bar, but as I said, that's hardly going to scratch the itch of loneliness. It might keep them going, but so many older men just look and act like husks of their former selves because they no longer have friends. This issue is huge. Interesting thoughts. Here in Australia, we have this phenomenon called a man shed to help older men deal with loneliness. It's usually run by a local community and provides usually older men with a place to work on projects in a social setting. It's been quite effective in preventing and treating depression, from what I understand. Also, picking up hobbies like amateur astronomy, etc. can be a conduit to forming more meaningful friendships. A lot of my guy friends are simultaneously very lonely and seem very intimidated by the prospect of even trying new things. Initiatives like the Shed idea are great, as are trying out adult classes for something you've been curious about for a long time. I think most women would be surprised to learn that our pee doesn't always come out in a nice, steady, straight stream. My wife still assumes I have no aim because of the times where it may be coming out in more of a splash manner, or the stream is just completely directed haywire. Does anybody else get splash on their shins? It's really gross when I'm wearing shorts. Gross when you feel it on your shins, but for me it's worse realizing after it also happens when you wear jeans, but you just don't feel it. You have to be scared of kids. For example, one time I was in the supermarket and a little kid came up and told me he was lost. But because people jump to call men kiddie diddlers here in the US, instead of walking the kid to the front or trying to help him find his mum and dad, I had to tell him to stand there and not move, and I went to the front and got an employee. Now here's the craziest thing. The first employee I found was a male, and his response was, "Hang on, it's store policy that male employees don't handle these situations." So he had to go and get a female employee who then helped the kid out. I asked the guy after why that was the policy, even though I kind of knew the answer, and he explained to me that it's happened just before in this store alone, where a male employee had gone to comfort a crying kid or help them find their parents, and either the parents or a stranger had accused them of trying to kidnap them. So if you haven't thought about this before, there you go. Now if you see a guy walking past a kid who's lost, you know why they might have just walked past them. It's not a lack of wanting to help, it's the intense fear of being falsely labeled something. Well, here's a few. Number 1, how much crap we give each other as banter from a young age. Borderline bullying at times, but it's definitely helped us to man up. Number 2, not every guy is a handyman. Number 3, body issues affect us greatly. It's overlooked as we don't often share it, as we generally don't have the same level of emotional support that women provide each other. 4, most common advice we have is to just deal with it. How awkward it is to cry or be emotional in front of other people, even in situations where it would be normal, such as funerals. Usually bottle that stuff up and save it for when you're alone, and then let it out so no one sees. When my dog died, I went with my family and girlfriend at the time. I was 20. After they put him down, I went out of the room and cried in my girlfriend's arms. I apologized heavily for it over and over. Even when talking about it with a friend later, I tried to downplay the crying and he told me, "What do you expect? For me to tell you to F you for crying, you sissy B-word? Your goddamn dog died. Of course you cried." Probably the first intimate initial moment I had with my now husband was when we first started dating. His grandfather died. Husband's ex-girlfriend showed up to his grandpa's funeral, and they ended up doing the deed. He was so messed up over it. I called him later to ask how he was doing, and he told me all of it and lost it crying. I drove over and comforted him, but the fact that he trusted me enough to tell me what happened and to cry in front of me really stuck with me. He kept apologizing. I'm not sure if it was over doing the deed with his ex or crying, but I was like, holy crap, you have nothing to apologize about. We hadn't decided to be exclusive at that point, and told him I still cry about my mum from time to time, and that's okay. It's so incredibly messed up the way society expects men to downplay or deny their own grief or sadness. Tears are a testament to the depth of a relationship or connection. It's total bullcrap that they're not okay to shed. How much stress a man can undergo without a mental breakdown. My wife stays at home with the kids and I work 65 hours a week so we can live in the suburbs. She has no idea how hard it can be to say no to her or the kids because money is tight. It breaks my heart sometimes to not be able to give them everything they desire. My wife could never understand how tough that can be on me. Feeling like I'm not doing enough or not man enough to provide. Tough crap. Life as a dad and a man. Sole breadwinner. It can be tough mentally and physically. My wife works hard. She takes care of our kids and our house. She also pays the bills. But I'm so tired. Always.
What's your most accidental, awesome moment? So, in my first years in high school, there was this bully that always picked on me, pushing me around, swearing, and other bullying stuff. Me being the bespectacled little geek and him being taller and bulkier, I just tried to get out of his way and avoid him. So in our second year, our school went for a field trip in some village/farm area. As soon as we were far from teachers, this bully shows up, pushes me around, and hits me. I was fuming because he spoiled my trip, but didn't do anything and he left. A few hours later, I was having lunch up on a small hill that was overlooking a small amateur soccer field. And there was the bully, back to me, 20 meters away, playing as goalkeeper. Geek rage flares up. I have this apple with me, so I pick it up and throw it with all my might towards him. It hit him, straight on the shoulder blade. Now, my added height and distance must have added to the force of impact because he got knocked down hard. He lay there for a good 5 minutes, got up, turned around, looked at me, and started walking slowly towards me. I was thinking, oh crap, he's gonna kill me. But I had the geek rage still flaring, so I stood defiantly and waited, ready to fight back this time. He reaches me and goes, "What was that?" "An apple." Listen, man, I don't want any trouble. I was dumbfounded. He never bothered me again after that, even became a bit friendly. TLDR, I neutralized a bully with geek rage and an apple. I was sitting on a patio with friends, and a friend who was absolutely terrified of roaches started screaming and running around because a roach appeared on the top of the patio about 25 feet away from me. As a joke, I casually stood up, whipped out my pocket knife, and while talking, I threw it. It went spinning through the air and stuck the roach to the wood. I sat back down and finished what I was saying while everyone was in disbelief. We all had a good laugh, and they nicknamed me Crocodile Dundee. I catch rattlesnakes for a living in Phoenix, Arizona as an emergency response service for people who find a snake in their yard. Most calls are diamondbacks, but 1 in 4 or so, quote, rattlesnakes end up being a large constrictor called a gopher snake. Gopher snakes can be aggressive, but they're otherwise harmless. On one call, there was a kid of about 15 who was absolutely terrified of a rattlesnake he saw along the back wall of his yard, behind the swimming pool. The only way to really get there was to tightrope it across the narrow ledge of the pool. I got there and saw that it wasn't a rattlesnake at all, but a harmless gopher snake. So I reached down and grabbed the 5-foot snake. It was a jerk about the whole thing, striking at my face repeatedly and getting me on the forearm. I grabbed it closer to the head and wrestled it into control as I made my way back across the ledge to the bucket, where I unwrapped him from my arm and body and put it in the bucket. I then realized I forgot to tell the kid that it wasn't a rattlesnake before doing that. I looked up and he looked like he was going to vomit/pass out. Probably the palest I've ever seen a living person. He surely believed he was about to see a man die. I now routinely, quote, forget to tell homeowners that it's just a gopher snake. About 15 years ago, my ex-wife and I were at a party sitting across from each other at a fairly large table. We were surrounded by dozens of friends. Some sitting, some standing and chatting in the kitchen. She had my Zippo and I wanted to smoke, so I asked her to toss it to me. She tossed the Zippo to me across the table. The lid pops open in midair. Somehow, I hit the roller with my thumb as I catch it, and the thing lights up as it hits my hand. My arm is fully outstretched when I catch it, so I smoothly pulled my arm in, lit the cigarette in my mouth, snapped the Zippo shut with the flick of my wrist, and tossed it back to her with one fluid motion. Half the people at the table jump up in amazement and begged us over and over again to perform the trick one more time. We refused. I never told a soul that the whole event was completely accidental. My friends still talk about it with awe. Not nearly as awesome as yours. I was with my girlfriend at a party and she had this crazy look in her eye from across the table. I could tell she was going to spit a Skittle at me. I didn't know how I knew. She launched it across the long table and I caught it in my mouth. Nobody noticed. For this next one, as I describe this, I just want you to imagine Ave Maria playing in your head. I was at a college football game for MSU in Missouri. I was up in the nosebleeds after our marching band had played in the homecoming parade earlier that day. I left to go get concessions and started walking down the stairs. I tripped suddenly and began tumbling over and over, down, down, down. Over stairs, across landings, flailing hopelessly for purchase on one of the handrails or an onlooker's appendage, but with no avail. It seemed to never end. I eventually reached the bottom, where the landing divided left and right to lead the mezzanine, which meant there was a bit of concrete and a handrail directly in front of me. I hit the handrail with my lower back, almost fully upside down, and still locked in the kinetic tour de force of my fall. I rocked over the handrail with my lumbar as my fulcrum, dropped the meter or so to the ground, and landed feet first in such a state of confusion that I just started walking as if nothing had happened. The whole section erupted in cheers, to the point it made people on the field look up at us. TLDR, I took an epic fall down a crap ton of stairs in front of thousands, landed on my feet, and everyone thought it was on purpose. When I was about 11 years old, I got chased by 2 vicious, hungry-looking Dobermans in a car yard. Realized I wasn't going to get away, so I turned around, put my war face on, and bolted straight at them, shouting like I was possessed and intending to tear their freaking snouts off. Dogs disappeared with their tails between their legs. I felt like a big man. Now let me see your war face! Ah! I worked at a Boy Scout camp years and years ago. One of the activities I was in charge of was building a log cabin. Part of building the log cabin is to strip all the bark off the wood to help keep the logs from rotting. The Scouts generally had a love-hate relationship with this step of the project. On the plus side, they got to use sharp objects. On the minus side, it was hard manual labor. While they were using bark strippers, I was using a chisel to get the bark off around knots. Normally, using a chisel on wood is not a hazardous operation as long as the blade is facing away from you. One day, I was not doing well on my safety observance. I was trying to jam a stubborn piece of bark off the wood with the blade facing toward my arm. The wood broke against the force. The blade kept on trucking through the bark and into my wrist. At this point, the Scouts knew something was wrong as they saw me curse, drop the chisel, and grab my arm. I was the only adult present, so I was fighting to keep my calm as to not panic the Scouts. My solution was to turn it into a first aid lesson. I told a couple of Scouts to get the first aid kit and the others to help me over the picnic bench. I told them they were going to have an impromptu first aid lesson on severe bleeding and shock with the victim as their instructor. The Scouts were able to keep their heads together and get the health officer out to our location to treat me the rest of the way. They said it was the best first aid class they ever had. Oh, maybe junior year of high school. I used to stay after school to avoid going home. Some girl 1 year below me came up to me with her friends, acting flirty. Her girlfriend and 3 guys walked away. I did not think much of it at the time. Fast forward about 30 minutes, and the girl that I was talking to said that she was worried about her friend and why she was still gone. She said that her friend went in the auditorium and asked if I would see if she is still there. I walk into the auditorium and all the lights are off except for the band pit. I make my way down there and hear a girl say, "No, let go." I flipped a bit and mustered up a yell while charging the band pit. 3 guys take off, followed by the girls. About a month later, my dean walks into my classroom and says that she needs to escort me to the principal's office. Mind you, my school was huge, so while walking to the other building where the principal's office was located, I asked if this was about my skipping gym class a bunch of times. She said no, but whatever it was about must be really big to warrant her escorting me to the principal. We get to the office and I see 2 cops and the 2 girls that I met a month before. Freaking the heck out, I sit down and the cops say, "Thank you." What? I was asked some questions and was informed that the 3 guys were attempting to force themselves upon the girl. I guess I stumbled in at the right time. I had not spoken to my father for months at this time in my life, but received a call from him that night. The school called to tell him what I had done. My pops told me I was his hero. That was a good day. Once in middle school, my locker was next to some hot chicks. I noticed one of her books started slipping from the top shelf, so I put my hand out to stop it. It started actually falling, so I was like, crap, and awkwardly tried to stop it. It landed perfectly in my hand. The binding went straight into my palm, without me even looking, and I ninja'd it right back into the shelf. I was Peter Parker for 30 seconds. I was going to college in Chicago and left a bar near Wrigley Field with a beer bottle in my hand. While walking to the L, 2 guys confront me on the street wanting to rob me. I was stunned and accidentally hit the bottle on a brick building, shattering the bottom. The 2 guys thought I was going to defend myself with the broken bottle and ran. Stopped to get gas at an old country store gas station outside Camden, South Carolina. Apparently, one of the door hinges was broken, so when I opened the door, the entire door came off in my hands. There were 5 or 6 farmers, truckers in line at the cashier. One of the fellas said, "Dang, I'd feel pretty good for the rest of the day if I were you." Here's another story. When I was in grade 10, I had this real jerk of a computer science teacher. Like, the type that would rather make fun or condescend you to make himself feel better or something instead of helping you. One day, we were making programs to output certain properties of a sphere/circle after inputting a radius value. I remember asking him what's the surface area of a sphere or something to that effect. I mean, I don't think that was an unreasonable question. I'm in frickin' 10th grade for frick's sake. He decided to take this opportunity to humiliate me. So anyway, this is how the convo went. The surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared, right, sir? Did you just ask me the surface area of a sphere? Yeah? Well, maybe we should call your math teacher and find out. Walks over to phone, dials math teacher. Hey, your student X would like to ask you a question. I walk over to phone with everyone in class watching me. Yeah, Mr. Computer Science teacher doesn't know the surface area of a sphere, and he's too embarrassed to ask you himself. His face turned super red and the whole class cracked up. I felt so epic that week. Me and my then 3-year-old son went to the playground. This bigger kid arrived and started going around scaring the crap out of the smaller kids by popping out and roaring and hissing and whatnot right in their face. I saw what car came in and that his mom was sitting in it still, maybe just waiting for him to finish quote-unquote playing. Anyway, he proceeds to do his scare thing to my son, who of course freaks out and runs to me crying. I started fuming, thinking it's his own parents' responsibility to tell him to cut that crap out. I decided to go tell his mom. I ask, "Is that your son over there?" She says yes, and I tell her what he's doing, and either you get him to stop or I'll do it for you. To my surprise, she says, "Oh, please do. I can't control him today." So I go back over and try my best to hide right where he is roaming. And as soon as he's within striking distance, I pop out, and with all the air in my lungs, I scream at the top of my lungs 1 inch from his face. He ran back to his car, absolutely terrified and crying. I could see his mom. She didn't come out or do a thing. To this day, if anyone messes with my son who's bigger than him, he screams nonsensically in their face. Crazy beats size any day. Was in a restaurant with my girlfriend at the time, and when a guy built like a refrigerator just comes barging through and knocks my girlfriend's drink all over her. Sorry, real quick, I just need to mention that I could not tell you how many times I cracked up over the phrase built like a refrigerator. Like, that's such a specific thing to say, and it just murdered me every time I tried to read it. It was clearly an accident based on his refrigerator-like physique and being unable to hold his arms at his side. At this point, I'm standing up to help clean her up and figure he's going to apologize or something. Instead, he pushes my shoulder and tells me to get out of the way and, quote, let the dog clean herself up. I stare at him and say, that dog is my girlfriend. You dang well better apologize to her. So the woman and man at the table next to us are notably getting nervous. She drops her menu off the table. By some fluke, I catch the menu flat along the top of my foot before it hits the ground and proceed to just raise my foot, keeping the menu on top of it. I grab the menu into my hand, all the while glaring into this guy's eyes. I just tell her, sorry ma'am, you seem to have dropped this. I just look at him and say, so, I think we left it off where you were going to apologize to my girlfriend for being so rude and then walking around. Much to my surprise, he turned to my girlfriend and said, I'm terribly sorry, and then turned around and walked away. Our check was taken care of as well. I've caught light things like pieces of paper on top of my foot, but never something like a menu. And I was always terrible at hacky sack. I was 19 and at a house party near the university in my hometown. It was winter and my girlfriend and I were wearing scarves she had just knitted. They were her first knitting projects and she was super proud of them. I was super proud too. Anyway, there were a group of snarky jocks sitting on the steps and on the railing of the porch. We were returning from a beer run, and as I approached the door, one of the jocks on the railing says to me, "Nice scarf, gay boy," and all his buddies laugh. I stood there with the door in my hand for a second and looked at my visibly hurt girlfriend. It made me furious that he mocked her amazing creation and gift, so I slammed the door and started towards them to tell them how actually freaking awesome my scarf was. He must have thought I was in fight mode because he flinched, lost balance, tried to correct himself, and comically fell backwards off the porch to the delight of both his and my friends. I opened the door for my beaming girlfriend and we went inside. Best part is, no one knew all I was going to do was get all sentimental on his butt and open up a can of polite confrontation all over him. TLDR, guy smack-talked my woman's yarn crafts and now he's on his back. TLDR, accidental front flip on a snowboard. I'm a little late to the game, but here it goes. I used to work at a ski resort in Pennsylvania, so I'd be out riding in all kinds of crazy conditions. One particular day, the snow was really granulated to the point where you could get stuck in it. I was riding down a steep slope going quite fast and hit a pile of granulated snow that almost brought me to a complete stop. My reflexes told me to lean forward and tuck, so instead of a devastating fall, I was picked up off the ground by my momentum and did a front flip on my board, landing perfectly and riding away. I think one or two other instructors saw it. I was about 17 when I was walking with my younger brother and 2 of his friends. They were all about 12. A car, full of people, passes and yells at us and flips us off. I knew who it was, so I flipped them off and yelled, "Screw you!" back at them. We continued along and cut through an empty parking lot enclosed by trees to take a shortcut to our destination. The car I flipped off comes flying into the parking lot, people screaming, tires squealing. My little brother and his friends are scared crapless. I walk over to the car laughing because of the way the younger kids with me were acting, and was going to give my friends in the car a good laugh. When I get to the car, I stick my head dang near in the driver's window, still laughing, and realized I had no idea who any of these people were. My laughing face turned to a morbid, "I'm about to get my butt kicked" face, which the people in the car must have interpreted as maniacal laughter turning into a death stare. It scared the crap out of them, and I recall hearing passengers screaming at the driver to get the heck out of there. "He's going to kill us!" The car peeled away, and I walked back to rejoin my brother and his friends, and they all thought I was the coolest, most awesome older teen they'd ever met. About 5 years ago, there was a crazy huge bee in my house, and my brother, terrified of bees, came running to me, wanting me to kill it for him. I picked up my crappy toy airsoft pistol, which was loaded with 1 pellet, pointed the pistol at the bee from about 40 feet away, didn't aim at all, pulled the trigger, and saw a splat on the other side of the room. TLDR, unassisted triple play. I hate baseball. No offense. My mom made me play in the park league a few seasons anyways. So I was at second base in a coach pitch game, about 8 years old, when the batter hit a ball that would have passed right by me at shoulder level. I just casually stuck on my glove and, to my surprise, caught the ball. I was already stepping on the base, so the runner heading towards third was instantly out. By this time, the runner from first was approaching. "Tag him!" my coach was screaming frantically. So I reached out and tapped the runner from first. I remember everyone, especially the coach, going wild. They even dated the ball and gave it to me. I didn't realize until years later how rare an unassisted triple play is. This happened in my skydiving years. It was a Saturday morning. There was a group of girls from the nearby college wanting to jump, so the daring, including myself, wanted to do a hop and pop to show the girls what skydiving looks like. We get to altitude, jump, deploy our chutes, and start to show off our crazy canopy skills. I decide that I'll do a hook turn. They look cool from the ground, and my canopy colors were blue and pink. Well, after some tugs on my toggles, my hook turn collapses my canopy. It turns into a low hook turn. Low hook turns usually end up with a visit to the hospital or the morgue, usually the latter. With my canopy folded over, I'm doing revolutions. My altitude is too low to cut away and use my reserve, so I think to myself that, this is it. I hope this doesn't hurt too bad. I hope I can walk away. On the bright side, my lines didn't wrap around the canopy, so there is a possibility that I could pull it out before impact. From the people on the ground, all they saw were some skydivers coming in for a landing, swinging like a pendulum, and some of them coming in to kick this inflatable target we had at our DZ. They could tell that something wasn't right with one of the divers, me, because his chute wasn't open and he was spinning parallel to the ground. The most important thing to do in skydiving is to make everything you do look cool. With 100 feet to go before impact, I pump my toggles, release, and my canopy unfurls and inflates as if the hands of God raked his fingers through my lines and pulled my canopy tight. This put my body position perpendicular with no inches to spare for a walk-in landing. The crowd applauds with oohs and ahs, including the experienced divers who knew what was happening. I bow, gather my stuff, and go in the clubhouse to calm my nerves. My buddies told the students he does that all the time, and they knew I was shaken. I met my old dive buddies a few months ago. We live in different states now, and they brought up that experience as one of the craziest things they have ever seen.
What's the best question someone asked in life skills class? During student teaching, I heard a question a kid had asked. The kid raised his hand and asked, "So, if the mom were to have chest cancer, would her milk still be safe for the baby to drink?" The teacher thought it was a very out-of-the-box question, but unique, and praised the kid for thinking of it. I think they said their response was something along the lines of, "The mom probably wouldn't be in any shape to breastfeed." So the kid says, "Oh, okay, so could the baby still drink milk out of the dad's pee-pee?" The teacher had to turn around to avoid losing it in front of the kid. If you, came on a table, would it move? He was trying to ask if the sperm moved around in the seminal fluid, but had some poor choice of words. Wait, that's not how you check for mimics? If I keep letting him pee on me, will I get pregnant? Best day of my entire schooling career ever. When I was in 6th grade, we had something called FLE, I think it stood for Family Life Education or something, that was pretty much just a life skills class. It wasn't co-ed, so all of us, 11 and 12-year-old guys, were being taught by a homeroom teacher and the computer teacher. They gave us index cards to write questions down, and someone asked, "How do whales do the deed?" The teachers thought it was funny, but they didn't answer, and after a few minutes, I guess someone asked again because comp teacher asks, "Okay, what's up with you guys and whales?" I mean, now I kinda want to know what's up with whales. In a certain species of whale, a friend prevents them from sinking by letting them do the deed on his back. Our viewers should have now realized that when I'm saying life skills, the word I'm swapping out is SEX education, so the video doesn't get demonetized. There are, however, a lot of other words that I'm swapping out as well, obviously. I went to a private religious university that did a yearly life skills talk where the folks could submit questions about a week beforehand, and then have them answered anonymously at the talk. Best one was when the doctor leading the talk, scrolling through his list of questions, reads, "What is pubic hair for?" Pauses for a sec and says, "I have no idea," and just keeps scrolling on to the next one. Made me chuckle anyway. I did ask that question in life skills once, and I was laughed at by the class, and the teacher also did a, "I don't know," and moved on. I too have been waiting for an answer for over 20 years. I always assumed it was a protective cushion, just like the hair on your head. Hair on the head protects a little bit from bonks and falls. The hair on your bits protects them when you're smashing them together. So the teacher told us wearing 2 rubbers is actually less effective because of the increased friction, and a top mind in my class asked, "If you go fast enough, could you start a fire?" Asking the really important questions. A kid in 5th grade asked what the flavors on rubbers are for, while trying to stifle his laughter. The teacher responded with, "Use your best judgment." Can you get an STD if a guy splooges in your ear? Cue the rest of the class slowly turning their heads to look at this girl. You can develop hearing aids! Ha 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 ha! When a teacher was explaining that you could in fact get STDs from oral fun times, a girl in my grade asked, "How can you catch an STD over the phone?" Solid question, I thought. Fun fact, telephone area codes in the UK use STD, subscriber trunk dialing, for long-distance calls, so in the 1960s and 70s, it was new and exciting to have a phone with STD. The teacher told us the average size of male anatomy. Girl beside me whips out a ruler, marks it, and proclaims, "That's tiny!" She then proceeded to ask if the balls slide in too, followed by a hand motion and a sound. Had us all in stitches. There was a girl I was friends with in high school that was pretty fun, but known as a more, intimate person. She was dating a 26-year-old when she was like 16, stuff like that. When I took life skills class with her, the best gem of a conversation with our teacher went something like this. She said, "You know how when guys climax before the splooge comes out? There's a pre-splooge. Teacher, yes, why? Can this pre-splooge get someone pregnant?" "Yes, there can still be sperm cells present." "Well, that sure sucks. Can I please be excused?" She texted me later and told me she wasn't pregnant, thank God, but the timing of it was like a sitcom. Does peanut butter make your chest grow bigger? This was asked by one of the most popular girls in the 5th grade. I mean, if you eat lots and it makes you fat, you get a bigger chest, right? We had an anonymous question box where students could ask questions they were too embarrassed to raise their hands and ask. A lot of times people would just write joke questions, but the teacher would read them anyway. One day the teacher reads the question, "Is it better to pleasure yourself with your left or your right pee-pee?" A kid in the back audibly says, "You're supposed to have 2?" and immediately starts crying. I'm a little concerned because these sorts of classes usually take place in their teens. If that kid was that unsure of such an extreme fact of human anatomy, I'm worried. Here's one more chat from the anonymous questions box. If semen comes out at 30 miles per hour, how fast does a baby come out? Dear God, the anonymous question box was great in my high school. My second child came out close to that speed. Doctor almost didn't catch her. We had a box where people could write a question they were too embarrassed to ask, and someone would read them aloud for the teacher to answer. The best one was, if I'm doing a girl in the butt and she farts, will my balls explode? And the answer was… After she finally got the room of 15-year-olds to stop laughing, she informed us that no, it will cause him no harm. One of the 5th graders asked, "Does adult fun times feel good?" Poor teacher had no idea how to answer that. My dad asked that to his parents after they gave him and his brother a book about doing the deed. Apparently, my grandfather had to explain straight-faced that if it wasn't good, then no one would be doing it. A story from my friend's 5th grade life skills class, someone asked the male teacher what the climax felt like, and after consideration he said, "Like a sneeze, but good." I've always felt like that was a solid description. What's going to happen with all of these cucumbers after class? Girl drawing male anatomy on the whiteboard and then asks herself quietly, but loud enough for people to hear, "Are the balls in front of the pee-pee or behind?" I remember when the abstinence-only crew came to our class and presented their spiel about how life is so much better if you wait until marriage, and all that, then presented an opportunity to ask a question anonymously by dropping your question in a box. One kid asked how deep the butthole goes. Some kid asked what doing it in the ear was. The teacher squinted at him and went, "What?" Depending on when this was, the kid probably saw the Family Guy episode about that and assumed it was the real thing. Our teacher was telling us the different methods of pregnancy and STD prevention, and he said that the only way to 100% prevent both is abstinence. A guy said, "Where can you buy an abstinence?" Kid: "Why do people bounce up and down when they do the deed?" Teacher, very casually, "I don't know, I guess they just think it feels better that way." Well, frick, that's one professional teacher. There's no way I would have been able to keep a straight face. Just imagine, a man with his eggplant and some lady and they're just not moving, just lying on top of each other, keeping silence, and awkward eye contact the entire time. In middle school life class, our educator was about to go on her spiel about abstinence. A golden exchange went down a little something like this. "We're going to talk about a certain concept today. It starts with the letter A. Who knows what we might be talking about?" A 12-year-old girl shouts across the room a word that begins with A and means doing it in the butt. My teacher asked my class on a similar note, "What's the one sure way to avoid HIV?" Guy in my class stands up and announces with his hands on his hips, "Only do it in the butt. If only." Sincerely from the gay community. I can't believe that in not one, but 2 abstinence classes, kids were throwing them off by asking questions about doing it in the butt. Well done, kids. My friend: "Can we cook human egg into an omelette?" Good days. My 9th grade life class teacher liked to pick on the students a little bit for fun, and he asked one of the boys, "What would you do if you walked into a room and there was an undressed woman on your bed?" The kid immediately said, "Is it my mom?" I've spent many years teaching life class. In that time, many obscure questions have been asked, and I've prided on keeping a straight face and answering professionally. Apart from once. A class of 30 13-year-old boys and girls. The boy at the far end of my classroom, "Sir, what happens if we pee in her when we're doing the deed?" Quick as you like, a girl quipped up, "She'll dump you daft F-word." I did that once and she said it turned her on. You have an odd taste in women. I came here to write, "Is it possible to pee in a girl during fun times?" This must be a more common question than I thought. Our 5th grade, 10-year-olds or so, life class, we had to turn in any questions on anonymous note cards. One person just wrote, "Why do people do the deed?" They had a good point. The video we watched didn't say anything about it being enjoyable or rewarding at all, just the mechanics of it. For kids who hadn't developed the urges yet, it was weird as F to think about. Can you break a hard pee-pee? Can I get pregnant from a dog? Popular blonde girl, 9th grade. Oh no. I think you mean ruh-roh. With a diagram of female anatomy projected on the wall, a kid raised his hand and said, "I have a question." Everyone stopped and looked at him. The teacher said, "All right, go ahead." "So that's where I put it in, right?" The teacher says, Well, if you're talking about the act of doing the deed, then yes." The kid spoke loud enough for the room to hear him as he made a little note, "Put pee-pee in hoo-ha," then said, "Okay, can we go now?" Our teacher told the class that since we wouldn't ask a single question at the end of the 3-day class, we each had to write a question on a piece of paper, fold it up, and give it to him. He only chose a few pieces of paper to read from, and mine was the first. Can you have 3 biological parents? Me and a few of my buddies have been debating this for a while, and I wanted to prove to them that it wasn't possible. So he read it and got pretty annoyed and said, "No, it's not possible. Y'all are some messed up kids." Everyone was laughing, which made him even angrier. He angrily read the rest of the notes and then had the principal come in to talk to the class for quite a while. I asked at a Jewish day school, if it's Passover and a girl has a yeast infection, is it unkosher to eat her out? If you wear Coca-Cola flavored protection, do you have Coca-Cola flavored babies? Happened in 5th grade. Not really a question, but still funny as heck. Kid 1. What happens if the protection breaks? Teacher. Then your partner will become pregnant. Kid 2. Oh, crap. Teacher. Are you trying to tell me that you're active in that way? Kid. Not since I lost your mom's phone number. That kid was suspended for a week. Wasn't from a student, but the teacher said one of the silliest things I'd ever heard. He said he classifies oral fun times as the same as regular doing the deed, because the splooge can drip down into her hoo-ha from her mouth and impregnate her. I was stunned. Dear listeners, that was one hell of a statement to convert to a YouTube-friendly, safe-for-work format, and to know that a teacher said that in its uncensored format to children. My goodness gracious. What happens when you pull your foreskin back too far? Lots of pain and blood, along with a quick trip to the hospital is what happens. It's not fun. Can you get pregnant from doing it in the butt? Teacher, see me after class? My favorite reply to a question was a 5th grade girl. When I wipe, I can see I have some hair down there. How do I get rid of it? Of course, my response is along the lines of, it's natural, you don't need to get rid of it, it protects your body. To which a sassy little thing replied to her with a wave of her hand, Girl, my mum gets a Brazilian, I'm just gonna do that. I had a hard time keeping a straight face. There was a kid in my grade who always asked some fairly strange questions during life class. Highlights included when he asked if a bug could crawl into a hoo-ha, and if he could get it off with a glass of water as an adult fun time aid. 7th grade biology, not life class, we were talking about the 2-headed girls. My friend asked which one felt the climax when they did the deed, and what the other head is supposed to do when they're doing it. Do they look away, or is it basically a threesome? I nearly busted one myself from laughing so hard. Life class in an all-boys school. The lecturer mentioned that HIV can be transmitted orally and by doing it in the butt due to bodily fluid transfer during said events, but then said that the HIV virus cannot survive long exposures to air. I put 2 and 2 together and asked, so is doing the deed airtight, while miming the penetration act with my fingers? I got detention for a week. If 2 bearded men kiss, will they get crabs? Watts Middle High School, Centerville, Ohio, circa 1981. Credit the anonymous question submission box and a teacher willing to read out loud whatever questions came out of the box. Ah well, screw it, I've got a story for this. We had a gay dude with HIV come to my summer camp to do a life class talk. He asked if we had any questions, saying, literally any question. Someone took it literally and asked, what's the biggest PP you've ever had? Without missing a beat, the instructor said, bigger than yours. If you're doing it really hard, can your PP break off? Still cheers me up. Showing my age here, I was in high school when Jersey Shore was in its heyday. There's an episode where Snooki refuses to go into the ocean because it's full of frickin' whale sperm. So a girl in my class asked our health teacher if the ocean was in fact full of whale semen. My name is Ed. A girl asked me, so what day do we start life class? I took advantage of the situation and started rubbing my hands together and saying, ah yes, whenever you like. An awkward silence followed, then one kid says, oh, and starts busting up laughing. Then a whole cascade of laughs happen as people start to get it, and then the crowd that needed an explanation. A later addition to this story. Isn't it obvious enough that this happened in 7th grade when I was 12 years old? My goodness, I condemn those horrible kind of creeps, and I'm also an IT consultant that happily performed my duty to report on an executive who had kiddie content on his computer. Also, I admit, I thought of it at the beginning of the semester and I was dying for the right moment to say it. Thank you for clearing that up, Ed. I must admit I automatically assumed you were a teacher, and I was getting very, very concerned. Not quite life class, but my high school brought in a guy that specialized in STDs to teach us about them, how to recognize when we or our partner is infected, and how to protect against them in general. Had an anonymous Q&A section where people wrote down their questions on paper and put it in a box, then he randomly drew and discussed. Most of the questions were either decent ones or your basic wee-wee jokes. Then he pulled one out and read, "Is it safe to do the deed on my dog?" And everyone just burst out laughing. After a moment or two of the teachers getting everyone calmed down, he started talking. We all expected him to launch into how this is disgusting and unsafe, etc. We completely lost our crap when he went on to not only say that it was perfectly safe, apparently the only known STD transmissible between humans and canines results in a flu-like infection for a few weeks, and that's it. But he actually went on to say that since humans and dogs cannot get pregnant from each other, he actually recommends this. The horror on our teachers' faces was absolutely priceless. It's truly a shame that this happened in the days before smartphones were really a thing. That crap was front-page grade madness. If a guy puts a pee-pee in a butt, can it get turned inside out? A guy in our 5th grade life class asked me if he could fit his entire head inside a hoo-ha, and then proceeded to sing A Whole New World. Dude was 10. Someone asked if you could use Saran Wrap, the crinkly plastic candy wrappers for stuff like Jolly Ranchers, as a makeshift rubber. The entire class couldn't help laughing, and we got in trouble because we all had to agree to be mature. You can't make freshmen act mature. Can you still get pregnant if the pee-pee is too small and can't reach the cervix? Professor Speaker Person looked high as F trying to comprehend that one. How is Babby formed? 38 plus 2 weeks pregnant? Can oo get pregante? Is semen flammable? What color is a zebra's pee-pee? Wait, I can contribute here. Guy in the 7th grade loudly decried wearing a rubber and said he had a better method. He'd put lemon juice on his pee-pee just before doing the deed, and even though it was terrible stinging for both of them, it killed the sperm and meant he could go in raw, worry-free. The next year he dropped to take care of his newborn child. Is D-word for a female common adult fun times toy a country? The girl was an idiot, and the funniest part was, she asked the head of the geography department. There is a city in Newfoundland with that name, from the last I remember. You can Google it. Number 1. Do people really say giggity giggity while doing the deed? 2. It's been said women have 3 holes. Please explain. 3. How does the woman poop out the baby? 8th grade life skills class. Can you use duct tape instead of a rubber? Anonymous note in the question box. Had a guy ask this anonymously via card in a hat during one of those life class things during freshman year of college. The card read, PP plus PP ? First question. Professor was tenured and didn't give an F, so she looks at the group and says, I can only interpret this as asking if you have one. It will be located between your legs and will be slightly smaller than your pinky. Would have to say the best question I heard was from my 15-year-old sister and her best friend in health class this past year. Had the box with written anonymous question. First question was theirs. What do you do when guys don't understand no? My sister said teacher just stood there like, I don't know how to respond to that. The proper answer is pepper spray. 8th grade health class had a pretty chill teacher. After spring break, we begin the life class health unit. Teacher starts the class off. What do people typically find attractive in others? Obviously, he was expecting a few answers, some maybe a little edgier than others. Before anyone else could answer, a kid just blurts out, feet! This wasn't a question, but something I said in life skills class when I was like 13 or so, and for a while I found it embarrassing, but now I just find it funny. We were discussing the fact that when a woman is pregnant, her time of the month stops. So I, ever the class clown, said, so the baby's kind of like a tampon, right? It just sucks up all the blood like a very tiny vampire. The entire class and the teacher, actually, screw her, she was my science teacher for 2 years, and she was a butthole, looked at me like I'd absolutely lost my mind. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.